Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will be trying to fix the power scaling of Dragon Ball, since it's a very well-known fact that throughout the story, there has been many cases of massive power creeping, and in most instances, they were unnecessarily big, especially if we take in consideration the story of Dragon Ball as a whole. At least that's my opinion in the matter. Now, in case you don't know what power creeping is, it is a term that is mostly used on video games, but in the context of a fighting-focused story like Dragon Ball, it basically means that the standard of power levels in an ongoing arc has rendered previously introduced characters that hasn't increased their powers, essentially irrelevant to the current plot due to not being strong enough to face these new antagonists. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but this is how usually go in Dragon Ball, for better or worse. We will be using this tier maker, which has pretty much every character in the story, and it's also ordered by arcs, which is very helpful. It was done by Vika077. I will leave the link for this tier maker on the description of the video if you want to check it out. First of all, it is necessary to understand that changing the power levels means that in some cases, there would be inevitable changes over the actual plot, although I want to avoid this as much as possible, but whatever change to the actual plot we do, I will try to explain it the best I can in a way that makes sense story-wise. So without further ado, let's start. The first thing I want to do is to go through every single version of Goku and use them as a benchmark of power for each tier. With versions I mean every time Goku increased his powers substantially in the story. So naturally, the first version of Goku is the one from the beginning of the story, specifically, the pre-Roshi training. This one goes into the tier 1 of power level. Now, let me briefly explain what is my logic behind these tiers. I decided to use the already existing concept of numeric power levels used in the story, especially during the SAIYAN and Namek arc, but I reworked it in such a way that makes it way easier to understand. My reasoning behind this change is that in theory, portraying the power levels as numbers in the story helps the viewers of the show to understand, in a simple way, the strength of a character, but as we all know, in the actual story these numeric power levels quickly increased in numbers to exorbitant levels, which not only makes it harder for the viewer to understand them, but also contributes to the notion of a massive ongoing power creeping in the story. This problem is very present during the Freezer fight, and in my opinion, this power creeping wouldn't be so bad if the story actually ended during the Freezer arc, but as we all know, it didn't end there, and the power levels just kept increasing and increasing, which I believe is one of the reasons the reading of power levels in the story went away, at least for the most part. So, with that in mind, I created a power level range from 0 to a maximum of 100, which includes the power levels of characters that aren't fighters, all the way up to the strongest characters in the entire story. With this, the power levels are not just more readable, but also inherently decreases the power creeping, and as a bonus, we can also classify the characters that belongs to certain range of power level in a simple way that makes sense even inside the story. I will explain this more as we go through each tier. So as we said before, the beginning of the story's Goku belongs to the tier 1, which is the range of 1 to 9 of power level. On this tier, we will include any character that is a fighter but doesn't know how to use their own vital power / ki, so we will name this tier the following. Fighter, no ki user. So feat-wise, we know that Goku at the time was already incredibly strong for human standards, possessing borderline superhuman's capabilities, plus, he also was trained by Grandpa Gohan, so he knows martial arts, although, he is still unable to control his ki. Because of these reasons, I would put this Goku around the high end of tier 1, maybe around a power level of 8 or 9. Now we are going to go through other characters introduced during the beginning of the story, to be more specific, before the 21st World Tournament arc, and we will use the previously mentioned Goku as the benchmark for comparison. Bulma, despite being a genius, she is not a fighter and is just a human, thus belongs to tier 0. I want to clarify that tier 0 does not mean that the character has a power level of literal 0, but instead, its level is between 0.1 and 0.9, meaning that is not a relevant power to any fighter. Puar, Oolong, the turtle, and Lunch belongs to tier 0 as well. Lunch, in her blonde form, also belongs there, although she can still be dangerous to low-level fighters from rank 1 due to her firearms. Pilaf and his gang belongs to tier 0. We will be ranking their robots later. Yamcha, during the beginning of the show, was exceptionally strong, but not as much as Goku, but I think he is still capable of beating him, probably 3 or 4 times out of 10. Krillin, on the other hand, was also weaker than Goku, but he was still strong enough to be considered a disciple by Master Roshi. After all, Krillin was a monk that trained in a monastery for many years. Krillin, in terms of speed, didn't seem too far off from Goku, although, in terms of physical strength and endurance, there seems to be a larger difference. Krillin may be able to beat Goku 2 or 3 times out of 10. Chi-Chi as a kid was actually really strong, being able to kill a dinosaur in one strong attack and also being able to compete with Kid Goku to some extent, although she was still knocked out by Yamcha pretty easily. But to be fair, at this point of the story, the manga was way more focused in comedy than in actual action. In any case, I will put Chi-Chi at tier 1 around Krillin's power level. After all, Chi-Chi is the daughter of the relatively powerful Ox King, who, by the way, belongs to tier 10, corresponding the power level range of 10 to 19. This is because, beginning of the show, Goku was weaker than Ox King, and also, we need to remember that the latter was trained by Master Roshi before. In my opinion, if I could make a small change in the story around this time, I would introduce the key power system during the first appearances of Ox King and Master Roshi. Next, we have the Goku from the 21st World Tournament arc. This is after training with Master Roshi. Although, I am pretty sure the concept of ki wasn't introduced till later in the story, I think a very good change would be to introduce at least the basics of the ki power system during the training of Roshi with Goku and Krillin. Considering this revision, we will establish that this Goku learned how to harness his ki. However, he still lacks the technique and skill of a true master like Master Roshi. Nevertheless, he compensates for most of this deficit with his raw power. With this being said, this Goku belongs to tier 10, with a power level around 11 to 13. Since we just mentioned Roshi, I think it's time to rank him. During the 21st tournament, Master Roshi, also known as Jackie Chun, was the strongest character introduced so far, being a master of martial arts, and as we established before, a master in the usage of the power of ki. He was still quite a bit stronger than Goku. Despite that at times it seemed somewhat even between the two, we gotta remember that Goku was able to push Jackie Chun at his limits because of his accidental transformation into his Ozaru form. If it wasn't for that, Goku would have lost against the Thunder Shock attack of Jackie Chun. Talking about the Ozaru, Jackie Chun had to destroy the moon with a full-powered Kamehameha to transform Goku back to normal, making this scene a very infamous one due to a lot of people arguing that this was an outlier feat, which honestly I would normally agree, but I think I found a way to make this feat legitimate. By using the buff form of Roshi, or also called full power form, we can establish that his power increases to an extraordinary level, enough to potentially beat relatively very strong opponents, but as a huge drawback, this form can only be used by Roshi for a few seconds before getting tired, just enough to release a full-powered Kamehameha. With this, we can properly explain the ability of Roshi to blow up the moon without breaking the power scaling by limiting his buff form to only be really effective against mindless opponents such as an Ozaru Beast and not really useful against other opponents such as Tien or King Piccolo, despite the huge power that buff form Roshi has. Try to remember this details about Roshi, because we are going to talk about it again way later. Now that I explained all of that, I will put Roshi from the 21st World Tournament to tier 10 ahead of Goku and Ox King. In the other hand, if we just consider the raw power of full-powered Roshi form, I have to put him at tier 20. I will explain this tier later. Now is time to go through the other participants of the tournament at that time. First we have the bullies of Krillin from the monastery. They should be low-level fighters from tier 1. Then we have the quarter-finalists of the tournament: Ranfan, Bacterian, Jiren, and Yamcha. To me, all of them are around mid to high-level fighters from tier 1. About Yamcha, despite training for the tournament, he hasn't learned how to use his ki yet. Although, let's say he has reached the power level of Goku before his Roshi training. There is also the semi-finalist Krillin. I would put him at low-level fighter from tier 10, since he has learned how to use ki, but is still not proficient enough. Before I forget, I will put Goku's Ozaru form into tier 20, being slightly superior than Master Roshi buff form. The next semi-finalist is Nam, and despite that it was never stated in the story that he knows about ki, I would feel good about establishing Nam as a ki user. After all, he gave Goku a good fight. I think Nam being around Goku's power level is completely fine. With this, we are done for the characters from the 21st World Tournament, and for fun, let's go quickly through the most relevant characters and give them a more exact power level. Yamcha has a power level of 9. Krillin has a power level of 10. Nam has a power level of 11. Goku has a power level of 12. Ox King has a power level of 14. Jackie Chun has a power level of 15. Jackie Chun in his buff, full power form, has a raw power level of 20, although it has a lot of drawbacks. Ozaru form Goku has a power level between 20 and 21, although similarly to Rashi, has some weaknesses. Next, we are going to go from the Red Ribbon Army arc to the 22nd World Tournament arc. Once again, we are going to rank Goku from these arcs, although arguably, there could be two versions. The first one, the post-Master Karen training Goku. The second one, the 22nd World Tourney Goku. To me, the one with more narrative importance is the post-Karen training. For those that do not remember, Goku almost got killed after his fight against Tao Pai Pai, but after training with Karen, Goku was able to go toe-to-toe against the assassin, and was even able to beat him. The next increase of power from Goku was after going on his own two adventures before the 22nd World Tourney, although in my opinion, the increase of power shouldn't have been too big, at least in comparison to his previous power-up. In any case, both versions of Goku belong to Tier 10. With the first one having a power level around Rashi from the 21st World Tournament. And the Goku from the 22nd World Tourney finally surpassing his master in power, although not by a huge amount. Now, let's go through the characters from the Red Ribbon arc. Starting with the Red Ribbon Colonel, Silver, who was beaten by a pre-Karen training Goku pretty single-handedly. He belongs to Tier 1 with a power level between of 6 and 8. Next we have the General White, which strikes me more as a commander than a fighter. I put him in Tier 1 with a power level of 4 or 5. Then we have the subordinates of General White. Starting with Major Metallatron, who was a robot and gave Goku a run for his money. The latter even stated that Metallatron should have participated in the 21st World Tournament due to his power. I put the Major in Tier 10. With a power level around of Goku during the 21st World Tourney, maybe around 11 and 12. Next we have General White's second in command, the Ninja Murasaki, also known as Major Purple. He was no match to Kid Goku, so I put him in Tier 1. There is also Android 8, that due to his very peaceful attitude, he never showed the true extent of his powers, but I think it is at least implied that he may be stronger than the 21st World Tourney's Goku. Assuming he is fighting with everything he have, I give Android 8 a power level around Goku after the Tao Pai Pai fight. It may seem like too much, but I am a bit biased towards Android 8, but also is good to make some precedent about the potential of androids. Moving forward, we have General Blue from the Red Ribbon Army. It was stated that General Blue was the strongest officer from the Red Ribbon Army, and he certainly had better showings of power than the previous officers, especially considering Blue's psychic powers. General Blue belongs to Tier 10, with a power level around Goku's from the 21st World Tourney. As an extra, the average human soldier, such as a Red Ribbon soldier or a Earth's Army soldier, they have an average power level of 1. Now, putting aside the Red Ribbon Army for a moment, let's rank the chief of a village located in the sacred lands of Corinne. I'm talking about Bora. This character was one of the strongest humans introduced so far, being able to defeat a bunch of soldiers, brush off bullets from his body without harm, and was able to throw Goku and Yajirobe's bodies above the clouds with his raw strength. I think it is fair to say that feat-wise, Bora was physically stronger than Goku's pre-Rashi training. Because of that, I will rank Bora at Tier 10, around the power level of the likes such as Nam, and we will also establish that Bora knows how to use his ki to enhance his body. Naturally, the next character we need to rank is the first antagonist that defeated Goku so bad that forced him to obtain a power-up through training. I am talking about the legendary mercenary, Tao Pai Pai. The assassin didn't just kill with ease the previously mentioned Bora, but also was able to nearly kill Goku in a straight fight. I find Tao Pai Pai a bit tricky to compare against other powerful characters at the time, such as Master Roshi, because, if we go by showings, Goku was outclassed in combat by Tao Pai Pai, and in comparison, the 21st tournament's Roshi fight against Goku was a lot more even, and it doesn't really sit well with me putting Tao Pai Pai ahead in power than Master Roshi. At the very least, I want to put that version of Roshi and Tao Pai Pai at the same power level. But now we gotta explain why the fight between Jackie Chun and Goku didn't went as one-sided, such the Tao Pai Pai fight, despite both Master Roshi and the assassin being relative in power. One of the reasons I can come up with is that Roshi was still in a rusty state during the 21st World Tournament, since he most likely hasn't been fighting regularly for years. In the other hand, Tao Pai Pai can be considered being in his prime, probably constantly fighting and killing relative strong opponents due to being a hitman. Another reason is that the context of the fights were really different. Roshi had every intention to win his battle against Goku in the tournament, but even then, it was still just a competition, a friendly fight between both contestants, and also, Roshi wanted to test the newfound skills and fighting capabilities of his disciple Goku. In the other hand, Tao Pai Pai never had any intention to have a competitive fight against Goku. Instead, he went straight to the kill from the very beginning. Finally, it can also be argued that since Goku was trained by Grandpa Gohan, who in turn was trained by Master Roshi, meant that Goku was a lot more accustomed to compete against Jackie Chun's fighting style. Meanwhile, Tao Pai Pai's fighting style and even abilities such as the Dadanpa completely blindsided Goku. After Goku was defeated by Tao Pai Pai, our hero trained with the cat, Master Korin, who, by the way, belongs to Tier 20, possessing a power level superior than Tao Pai Pai, and even Goku at the time. In the story, Goku after training with Korin was portrayed as significantly stronger than Tao Pai Pai, and I think this is one, if not the first early sign of power creeping, and the best thing to do is to start fixing this from the get-go, before it becomes a problem, even though, at this point of the story, is not completely necessary. So, if Tao Pai Pai has a power level of 16, then let's give Goku post-Korin training a power level of 17, still stronger to the point that Goku could beat Tao Pai Pai somewhat comfortably, if all the circumstances of the fight are favorable for him. So what are these circumstances that favored Goku? Well, as a starter, Goku is highly motivated to crush Tao Pai Pai due to his previous evil actions. Is reasonably to say that Tao Pai Pai was caught off guard by the considerable increase of power by Goku in such a short amount of time. Also, the assassin hasn't probably fought anyone with a similar power for a long time. All of these factors did negatively impact Tao Pai Pai's fighting performance against a very confident Goku. There is also the fact that Goku should be more accustomed to Tao Pai Pai's fighting style. With all of that being said, I would say that Goku would beat Tao Pai Pai 7 or even 8 times out of 10 if the circumstances were the same as their rematch fight. But if Tao Pai Pai were fighting in optimal conditions, I would give Goku the win of 6 fights out of 10. We have only a few more characters left, from the Red Ribbon Army arc, starting with their leader, Commander Red, who's not really a fighter, so he goes to Tier 0. Lastly, we have the final antagonist of the Red Ribbon Army arc, Staff Officer, Black. In the original story it was implied that Black was the strongest Red Ribbon soldier, but still, was no match for Goku post-Korin training, so putting him around the power level of General Blue seems about right. There is also the battle jacket used by Officer Black, which increases his fighting capabilities, but still, it wasn't enough to beat Goku. Although, apparently, the battle jacket from the Dragon Ball Special's Path of Power was portrayed as an actual, powerful threat for our heroes. Personally, I enjoy the Path of Power's portrayal more, so in this revision of the power scaling, I will rank Black Officer's battle jacket power slightly below than that of Goku post-Korin training. I think that's a fair upgrade from the original story, and it shouldn't change too much, besides making the Goku's fight against Black more challenging. Now, before we get into the 22nd World Tournament, let's go through the Uranai Baba tournament and its participants. Krillin and Yamcha seems to not have increased their powers substantially since the 21st World Tournament, so they stay the same. In case of Urabai Baba's fighters, Fangs the Vampire and the Invisible Man strike me more as gimmicky fighters, relying on their special abilities more than their raw power. For that, I rank them at Tier 1 with a power level around 6 or 9 at most. Next, we have the Mummy, whose power was stated to be possibly higher than Goku during the 21st World Tournament, which seems fine to me. The second strongest Uranai Baba's fighter was Spike, the Devil Man, whose power I would personally rank around Tao Pai Pai's, and I would establish that he lacks martial arts skills and relies, mostly, in his very powerful special ability that allows Spike to injure and even kill any opponent with negative thoughts. Fortunately for Goku, he didn't have any negative thought in his mind during his fight against Devil Man. And finally, the strongest, although temporal fighter of Urabai Baba, is no other than Grandpa Gohan, whose power level was almost, if not equal to Goku's at the time, so I rank Gohan at the same power level. Now, we finally got to the 22nd World Tournament arc, where most secondary characters increase their power level. Krillin managed to reach semifinals after beating Shiatsu and gave Goku a decent fight despite the difference of power. To me, it's fair to rank Krillin slightly ahead than Goku's during the 21st World Tournament. Yamcha also increases his power level to a decent level, being able to reach tier 20, but personally, I still put him slightly below Krillin's power level. I think it is fair to say that Master Roshi also increases his power level because he has been training Krillin and Yamcha regularly as a preparation for the tournament, meaning that he isn't as rusty as he was as Jackie Chun during the previous tournament. I rank Roshi at the same power level as Goku's post-Korin training, especially considering he gave Tien a very good fight during the semifinals. Although Goku became stronger for the 22nd World Tournament, I dare to say the improvement shouldn't have been too massive, especially considering that prior to the tournament, Goku was more into the adventures than just constant training. Or at least, that's what are we going to establish, to avoid any unnecessary power creeping. Now, let's go through the new introduced characters from this arc. Starting with King Chappa, who was stated to be a previous winner of a martial arts world tournament, and he won it without being even touched by his opponents during the fights. Although King Chappa was outclassed by Goku, he at least didn't lose in a single attack, so consider everything, I rank him at rank 20, around the power level of Goku's during the 21st World Tournament, maybe even slightly below. Next, we have Shiatsu, who I rank around Krillin's power level, although I can see him being above him too. In any case, he still lost his fight against Krillin. There is also Master Shin, who shouldn't be too far off in terms of power than the likes of Tao Pai Pai and Master Roshi. So I rank Master Shin above Tao Pai Pai and below Roshi from the 22nd tournament. After all, Master Shin did survive a direct Kamehameha from Roshi. Finally, we have Tien, who, at this time, was the strongest rival of Goku, being able to beat Master Roshi, and won the 22nd World Tournament against Goku. Tien deserves to be ranked at the same power level as Goku's at the time. We now are at the last two arcs before reaching Dragon Ball Z, and from this point, we are going to start seeing bigger changes on the established power levels in the story, but before that, we gotta give a classification to the Tier 20. If we analyze the characters we have in Tier 20 so far, we have multiple masters of martial arts, and as we established before, key users such as Master Roshi, Master Shin, Master Korin, Don Pai Pai, Grandpa Gohan, Ox King, and as we going to see later, Master Mutato belongs in this Tier 2. So considering all of this, I would like to classify Tier 20 as the tier of Masters of Ki. Now, let's start right away with the King Piccolo arc. In a flashback, the master of both Roshi and Shin was introduced. We learn that Mutato fought King Piccolo, but lost easily against him during their first fight, but in the last battle after training and becoming stronger, Master Mutato managed to seal King Piccolo with the Mafuba technique, although at the cost of his own life. Considering all of this, I think it is fair to say that Master Mutato was really strong, especially during his final fight against King Piccolo, considering that he was able to seal him and he wasn't defeated easily like the last time. Next, we have two of the sons of King Piccolo, starting with the weakest of them, Symbol, whose power wasn't really shown much, since he got killed in his very first fight against another recently introduced fighter, called Yai Rob, who shouldn't be too behind of Goku's and Tien's power level at the time. Because of this, I rank Symbol around the power level of Goku's during the 21st World Tournament. Tambourine is the next son of King Piccolo, who was actually created with the purpose to fight strong opponents, and he was able to kill multiple fighters from previous tournaments, including Krillin. Tambourine was also able to beat Goku, but only when our hero was tired and hungry due to the world tournament. I would like to put Tambourine powers superior than the likes of Tao Pai Pai, but not by a huge amount. After all, Tambourine still got beaten by Goku after he recovered his strength and with full intention to kill him, and as we established before, Goku post-Korin training isn't too behind in power in comparison to 22nd World Tournament's Goku. Next, we have King Piccolo, who was two versions, the old age one and the young one after wishing to regain his youth. The old age's King Piccolo was able to nearly kill Goku in battle and essentially killed Shatsu and even Master Roshi. King Piccolo deserves to be ranked at tier 20, surpassing the tier of key masters, not only because of who he has defeated, but also it would make narrative sense, since King Piccolo is stated to be capable of conquering the entire planet Earth, which we actually see later in the story. Let's classify right away the 20th tier as the World Conqueror tier. The characters that belongs here are fighters that have the potential to conquer a world by themselves, even a relative weak one such as Earth. We will give more details about this tier eventually. So, Goku Ozaru form belongs to tier 20, which makes sense to me, considering that even low-level Saiyans are capable of conquering weak worlds by using their Ozaru forms. And as we stated before with Master Roshi in his buff form, he has the raw power to be able to destroy a moon and presumably enough power to blow up a big chunk of a planet, but naturally, this form of Roshi has too many drawbacks to be used reliably in a fight. I would give old King Piccolo, Roshi in his buff form, and Goku's Ozaru form a power level of 20, although obviously, it doesn't need to be exactly 20, for example, old King Piccolo could have a power of 20.5554, Ozaru Goku a power of 20.182, and so on. Next, we have the young version of King Piccolo, who himself stated to be infinitely more powerful than his old self. But in terms of power scaling, was this really necessary? Old age King Piccolo was already stronger than every other character at the time, making him way more powerful in his young state. It's just unnecessary power creeping. So, let's say that in terms of raw power, young and old King Piccolo are about the same, but young King Piccolo have way better stamina and also more latent potential to increase his own power level by training. King Piccolo saying that he is infinitely more powerful in his young state, it is just hyping himself out of proportions, which to be fair, is not rare in Dragon Ball. So, if we want to be more specific, let's say, old King Piccolo have a power level of 20.5, and young King Piccolo have a power level of 20.8. Next, we have the new son of King Piccolo after becoming young again. This new child's name is Drum, and is the strongest son so far. Drum fought against Tien and was able to beat him quite easily in the story, and if we take that into consideration, he should be at power level 20, which obviously wouldn't make sense, considering that we established that King Piccolo have that power level, so we gotta make a change here. So let's give Drum a power level of 18, the same as Tien. Now, let's compare the original fight with our own revision of the fight using the reworked power levels. In the original battle, Tien intended to fight King Piccolo, but the supposed demon created Drum to fight for him instead. Tien held his own for a bit, but was quickly disposed by Drum. Eventually Tien had to be saved by Goku. So in our revision, Tien have no other choice to fight Drum, but he realizes that the longer the battle drags on, the less chances he will have against King Piccolo, so he decides to rush in and kill Drum the fastest he can by using only assassin moves that he learned from Master Shin, without using any of his other special techniques, so he can save it for the true enemy, King Piccolo. This proved to be a huge mistake, because Drum doesn't hold back at all, and he has a similar power level as Tien, and additionally, he has a different physiology than humans have, so Tien's assassination moves don't work nearly as well in Drum. Despite Tien trying to finish off his enemy, Drum was able to outlast the ruthless attacks of Tien, and got the upper hand against him, eventually beating Tien into submission, although the monster still got decently tired and damaged. In any case, it is fair to say that Tien would have beaten Drum if he wasn't holding back. Just before he can finish him off, Goku joins the battle and saves Tien, and consequently proceeds to kill in just a few hits the worn-out Drum. So, with this new revision of events, we essentially keep the same plot as the original story, but we give a better fighting showing by Tien, and we avoid unnecessary power creeping at the same time. We have only left Goku's power level after he drank the Ultra Divine Water, unlocking his current potential, and it's only fair to rank him at tier 20 with a power level of 20, the same as King Piccolo. Goku's fight against King Piccolo was pretty even, although there was one moment where King Piccolo used a very powerful ki attack that could have beaten Goku, but he was saved by Tien, who used his flying ability, which at the time was one of his specialties. With this, we get a very good payoff for Tien, rewarding him for not using any of his special abilities against Drum. Otherwise, King Piccolo could have taken in consideration the flying ability from Tien and use his ki blast from a different angle, beating Goku in the process. Although Goku ended up killing King Piccolo, it was a reminder for him that although he is very powerful, he needs to improve his skills and ki abilities, which he will do during his training with Kami-sama. We finally got to the last arc before reaching Dragon Ball Z, and we will start right away by changing some bits of the story, which can help to alleviate the power creeping. In this case, I would like to make the effects of the Ultra Divine Water that Goku drank to unlock his potential only temporal. My reasoning for this is to avoid making our previous antagonist, King Piccolo, irrelevant in power so freaking fast. In case you don't remember, in the original story, after Goku beats King Piccolo, he immediately went to Kami-sama to train and become even stronger, and we are then introduced to Mr. Popo, who is just a servant for Kami-sama, and also demonstrated to be stronger than Goku's at the time and by extension, King Piccolo. Mr. Popo even stated that Kami-sama is way stronger than himself, and he could have defeated King Piccolo easily. Putting aside all the plot implications of why Kami-sama didn't just deal with King Piccolo himself, I found unnecessary that, immediately after the strongest antagonist by far at this point of the story, was already so behind in power. It is understandable that Kami-sama, also known as God of the Earth, was stronger than the supposed King of Demons, Piccolo, but we all know that both Kami-sama and King Piccolo were one and the same before splitting from their original body, and they weren't exactly a divine creature either, but an alien. So, going back to my previous change about the Ultra Divine Water, we will establish that its effects are only temporal, and that Goku's power was already decreasing considerably during his first encounter with Mr. Popo. So let's say Goku had a power level of 18 and Mr. Popo a power level of 19, who, by the way, isn't just stronger than Goku, but also way more skilled in reading his opponent's movements by sensing their ki. Now, I will rank Kami-sama to tier 20 with a power level of 21, higher than King Piccolo's but not by a large margin, and also, we are going to establish that due to the old age of Kami-sama, he has low stamina, similarly to King Piccolo, before wishing for his youth. After these changes, the story goes as usual. Goku trains for 3 years with Kami-sama, and is able to increase his power considerably, not only slightly surpassing his own power level during the King Piccolo battle, but also increasing his combat skills and ki control a lot more. So, Goku's during the 23rd World Tournament have a power level of 21, the same as Kami-sama, but he lacks the drawback of low stamina, and he is also similarly skilled to the Green God. Naturally, Goku wasn't the only one to increase his power considerably. Krillin, Yamcha, Shatsu, and Tien also increased their power by training during the 3 years previous the World Tournament, but the increases are not the same as Goku's, since our hero has been training with God. Let's go through the power levels of the participants during the 23rd World Tournament, starting with Shatsu, who was beaten by Tao Pai Pai in his cyborg body, so let's give Shatsu a power level of 16. Tao Pai Pai in his cyborg form have a power level of 19, but let's establish that the assassin lost most of his skills he previously had in his original body, so he was still beaten easily by Tien. Tien has a power level of 19, if we want to be more specific, a power level of 19.5 or more, very close to 20, but not quite reaching that state yet. The improvements in power may not seem huge for Tien, but we gotta remember, he was also developing new special abilities, such as the cloning technique. We have another character we haven't seen in a while, Shishi, who managed to get to the quarter-finals before losing to Goku, so she certainly has considerable power. A power level of 16 seems fine to me, making Chi-Chi stronger than her father. Krillin also showed a considerable increase of power and skill, but naturally he was still not able to beat Piccolo Jr. during the quarter-finals. Seems fair to give Krillin a power level of 18. We also have Yamcha, who lost to Kami-sama, who was possessing a weak human body to participate in the tournament. Let's give Yamcha a power level of 18, similar to Krillin's. Talking about Kami-sama inside the human body, he should still be pretty strong at tier 20, but with a lower power level of just 20, instead of 21 as in his real body. Finally, we have Piccolo Jr. with a power level of 21, surpassing King Piccolo. So, with these reworked power levels during this arc, I think everything should go as it went in the original story. Maybe the fact that Kami-sama's power level is the same as Piccolo can be questioned a bit, but as we established before, Kami-sama lacks the stamina to be in a long-term battle against the likes of Piccolo Jr. It also can be argued that both Kami-sama and Goku could have fought Piccolo at the same time, but this, even in the original story, was rejected by Goku, who wanted a fair one-on-one battle against Piccolo. With that, we have finally reached the end of OG Dragon Ball, and next part of this video, we are going to start with Dragon Ball Z, which will be way more challenging, considering that the power creeping increases a lot more, with introduction of transformations and multipliers. Still, I think it is an exciting challenge, and I am very happy with what we have done so far. Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to continue with the power rescaling in Dragon Ball. We will go through the entire SAIYAN arc, from the Raditz fight to the Vegeta and Nappa invasion to Earth. So let's start right away, by explaining the most relevant changes we did in the last video. So, last video, we established 4 different tiers. The first one is tier 0, and here belongs characters that are no fighters, such as Bulma or Pilaf. The next one is tier 1, and here belongs characters with a power level around 1 and 9. These are fighters that don't know how to use ki to enhance their power. For example, Goku and Krillin before training with Rashi, or most of the Red Ribbon Army soldiers. Next, we have tier 10, and characters that belong here have a power level around 10 and 19. These are fighters that have mastered the use of basic ki, or at the very least, they learned how to use it. For example, Grandpa Gohan, Tao Pai Pai, or Master Mutato. Finally, we have tier 20, and here belong characters with a power level between 20 and 29. These fighters possess enough power to conquer entire worlds by themselves, ranging from planets with relative very weak residents, such as Earth, to planets with habitants that possess high technology and/or very high quantity of strong fighters. In the lower end of this tier, you have King Piccolo, Kami-sama, and even Kid Goku in his Ozaru form, which by the way, would explain why Goku was sent to planet Earth, since the Ozaru form of a Saiyan should be enough to eliminate any threat from a weak planet like Earth. Now, before we continue with the SAIYAN arc, I want to clarify something important about this reworked power levels. The power levels we are changing to are not linear, nor even exponential. Instead, it should be interpreted more as a guide to compare easily different characters. You can change the power levels to any number you want, but the final hierarchy of power remains the same. In simpler words, what really matters is knowing who is stronger than who and the narrative implications of it. Now, let's finally start with the SAIYAN arc, specifically the Raditz saga, which occurs 5 years after the 23rd World Tournament arc, also known as the Piccolo Jr. arc. At this point, the strongest known fighters were Goku and Piccolo, and as we established last video, they had a power level of 21 during the 23rd World Tournament. Now, after the 5 years period, it didn't seem that they increased their powers by a lot, which to me is totally fine, especially considering that Goku had to spend a lot more of his time with Chi-Chi and raising his first son, Gohan. In the other hand, Piccolo don't even have a training partner anyway, although I believe he increases his power mostly by meditation. In any case, during these 5 years, Piccolo still was able to develop a very strong ability, the Special Beam Cannon. So, I place both Goku and Piccolo during the Raditz fight still at 21 of power level. They got stronger, but not enough to warrant the increase to 22 of power level. If anything, their true increase of power was in the development of new abilities, especially in the case of Piccolo. Next, we have the first antagonist from Dragon Ball Z, Raditz, and with him, there were a lot of new concepts introduced to the story, from the Saiyan to the power levels. So because of that introduction, I'll go through every moment from the Raditz saga where the strength of a fighter was calculated by a scout, and I will make the comparison between the original story and our changes. With that in mind, the very first reading of power level we see is no other than the legendary human farmer with a shotgun. In the original story, the scout read a power level of 5. If we apply the changes, farmer with a shotgun, while holding back his real strength, would belong in Tier 0, the non-fighter category. So instead of a power level of 5, with our changes, he will have a power below 1, let's say 0.5. The next reading was Piccolo with a power level of 322, and with the changes, he would have shown a level approximately to 21.5. Next reading was from Gohan, with a power level of 710, but we will talk more about this later. And finally, we have the readings of Goku and Piccolo without their weighted clothes, which increase their strength marginally. In the original story, Goku and Piccolo without the clothes have a power level of 416 and 408, respectively. So with our changes, Goku would have a level of approximately 20.6, same with Piccolo, being only slightly weaker by a few decimals. Now, before we establish the power of Raditz, we gotta talk about how he was presented narratively in the story, which was like this overwhelming force, way stronger than anyone before. But as we know, not even an arc later, Raditz was power creeped by pretty much every relevant fighter in the story, even freaking Saibamans were around his strength. This never felt well with me, so I will be making some changes around Raditz's power in comparison to others during the SAIYAN arc. With this being said, from now on, we will making a lot of minor changes and clarifications, so bear with me. In the original story, Raditz has a strength level around 1500, almost 4 times stronger than Goku and Piccolo at the time. Personally, that's too much, considering how hard he got power creeped, so I think, at maximum, having twice the power is still good. After all, Goku was still able to fight one-on-one against Raditz for a short period of time. Yes, he still got beaten pretty fast, but it wasn't like he got beaten in just one punch, which is something I would expect of a fighter that is more than 3 times stronger. Plus, even though Raditz was a bit weakened by an enraged Gohan's head, but he still wasn't able to release himself from the hold Goku had over him, which resulted in his death by the special beam cannon of Piccolo. So, I will give Raditz a power level of 22, and yes, it doesn't seem that much higher than Goku and Piccolo's level of 21, but remember the numbers are mostly a guide. But if you have a tough time imagining the difference of power of a single digit, at least at tier 20, you could say that at minimum, the difference is twice the strength. So for instance, the difference between 21 and 22 is at the very least the double of power. Honestly, tier 20 will be very, very tight in terms of power levels, which is pretty much inevitable with the constant increase of strength during the SAIYAN arc and especially FRIEZA arc. Now, 2 fighters of a power level of 21 should be able to beat someone with just 1 level higher, right? I would say yes, but we gotta remember that Piccolo and Goku, at the time of the Raditz fight, were sworn enemies. It is not like they ever fought someone together before, so a good change to the story that could explain this is that both Goku and Piccolo had really bad coordination while fighting together against Raditz, so eventually, they just decided to use the special beam cannon tactic. Plus, both felt intimidated by Raditz's power, so that was another minor factor too. Before finishing with the Raditz saga, we only have left Gohan's power level, specifically, when he is enraged, reaching momentarily 1300, surpassing his father's strength by a lot. Although, I understand that showing the potential of Gohan was necessary for the plot, I don't think it was necessary for him to be already so much stronger than his father, considering he is like 5 years old. To me, it is just unnecessary. With that being said, I will still rank an enraged Gohan at tier 20, either with a power level of 20 or 21. Seems good enough to still show the huge hidden potential of Gohan. Now, he was able to damage Raditz, but we gotta remember, the Saiyan was caught by surprise by the sudden increase of power of the kid, explaining why he got so hurted by the attack. Now, it is time to start with the next phase of the Saiyan arc, the Vegeta and Nappa invasion. In the story, between the Raditz fight and the arrival of the other 2 Saiyan, all of our heroes trained for 1 year, waiting for their arrival. Goku died and was able to reach and train with King Kai. Meanwhile, Piccolo trained Gohan, and the other fighters, such as Krillin and Tien, were trained by Kami-sama. Let's start with the Z fighters. As we established last video, Krillin and the others were all at tier 10, but after training with Kami-sama during the SAIYAN ARC, most of them were able to reach tier 20. In the original story, after training with Kami-sama, essentially every fighter was able to surpass Goku, and some even surpassed Raditz. And they all did it under a year, which is just crazy to me. Goku did also train under Kami-sama before, for 3 years, and he didn't become that strong, not even close. So, that somehow, Krillin and the others were able to become so much powerful than Goku is just inconsistent and straight power creeping. So let's start right away, ranking the weakest of the Z fighters at the time, which is Seiyasu. Last time we ranked him, he had a power level of 16, and now, after training with Kami-sama, he reached a level of 19. I feel a bit bad about Seiyasu being so weak in comparison to the others, so I will give an unnecessary explanation as to why. So, as we know, Seiyasu's main abilities are his psychic powers, which requires different kind of training and specialization than the regular style of fighting of the others. And because they only had like 6 months to train with Kami-sama, Seiyasu focused mostly in being a training partner for Tien and the others, helping them to increase their power instead of his own. Next, we have Yaoyorobe, who previously had a power level of 18, but after training with Kami-sama, he reached a power of 19, which is very low increase, but still, he is obviously not as motivated to become stronger as the others, and, I am pretty sure, he didn't even learn how to fly, so he mostly trained to help the others, similar to Seiyasu. Next, we got Yamcha, who previously had a power level of 18, and after training with Kami, he reached a level of 20. We have the same situation with Krillin, who is just slightly stronger than Yamcha, but still, with a power level of 20. Finally, Tien, after Kami training, have a power of 21. As a side note, there is a panel where Kami-sama says that all of the Z fighters finally surpassed him. Which is not completely true if we consider the changes we made. A good explanation for this is that Kami-sama meant that he already teach them the way to increase their strength by themselves, without the need of his presence. Next, we have Piccolo, who increased his power from 21 to 22, surpassing Raditz by a marginal amount. Naturally, this is a big change from the original story, since Piccolo was actually way stronger than Raditz during the Saiyan invasion. But this to me doesn't make much sense, considering that he was very focused in training Gohan, and even ignoring that, he only had 1 year of training by himself, so how is possible that he increased his power from 400 to more than 3000 of power level? Especially considering that during the 5-year gap between the 23rd World Tournament and the Raditz fight, his strength level didn't increase by huge amount in comparison. In any case, a Piccolo with the same power as Raditz would still win a one-on-one since Piccolo is more skilled at using his ki than Raditz. Gohan, after the Piccolo's training, would reach a power level of 20, but only if he is not under pressure. A Gohan enraged have a power of 22. Before we get into the Saiyans, we have the Cybermen, who were stated to have a power level of 1200 in the original story, but we are going to nerf them. It is just hilarious that some fodder plants with legs have a strength around Raditz. It's once again just unnecessary power creeping. I understand why it was necessary to show how much powerful the Z fighters became, but there are better, milder ways to do this. Making the previous strongest antagonist completely irrelevant by some literal fodder is almost insulting. I mean, there is a reason why Raditz is so mocked by the fans, even calling him the Yamcha of the Saiyans. Anyways, I rank the Cybermen at tier 10, maybe with a power level of 18 or 19. So, even with these changes, the story progress essentially the same. Tien beats a Cyberman easily. Yamcha is killed by one because he lets his guard down. And Krillin killed the rest by himself. So that's it, we avoided a lot of the power creeping so far, without making any major changes to the plot. Now, we move on to the elite warrior, Nappa, who was stated to have a power level of 4000 in one of the databooks, and he was clearly stronger than all the Z fighters, except Goku. So at minimum it is fair to say that Nappa have a power of 23. I think it should have been possible for Krillin, Tien, and Piccolo to beat Nappa under the ideal situation, but the Saiyan essentially blitzed Tien and incapacitated him the fastest he could, before the others were even able to help him in time. It was also implied that Nappa could have been defeated by the surprise attack of Piccolo and Krillin if Gohan wasn't paralyzed by fear, so it wasn't like Nappa was completely impervious by the attacks of the Z fighters, so a power level of 23 is reasonable. Next, we have Goku after training with King Kai. It was directly stated that his power level is around 8,000 or if you prefer, 9,000. Making Goku 2 times stronger than Nappa with a power level of 4,000. But this number was only stated in a guidebook, and even though Goku was beating Nappa pretty hard at the start, the fight was much even after the bald elite warrior regained his composure. So it is fair to say that even in the original story, Nappa's true strength is not too far off from 800, which we are going to keep. Thus, I will give Goku base a power level of 23, only slightly ahead by a few decimals over Nappa's. Sadly, this means that we are going to lose the over 9,000s meme, but sometimes sacrifices are needed for the greater good. Next, we are going to talk about a very troublesome ability, in terms of power scaling at least. The Kaioken. In the story, this technique increases the power of the user by twice the amount, and that's only the base multiplier, since it can go as far as 20 freaking times stronger. I don't think it's too crazy to say that the Kaioken hugely contributed to the power creeping in the story. So inevitably, I gotta do something about the multipliers in general. An easy solution that comes to mind is to simply remove from the story any explicit statement about multipliers. I think is much healthier for the power scaling to give the transformations an undefined increase of power, which will mostly depend over the latent potential of the fighter and also the mastery they have over their respective transformation, or in the case of the Kaioken, the technique. With that being said, we are going to change the Kaioken's mechanic of multipliers, and instead there will be only 2 Kaioken modes. The first one is the limited Kaioken, which increases the power of the user, but stress the user's body, although only to manageable levels. The second mode is the maximum Kaioken, which increases the power of the user past their limits, but it is highly dangerous for the body. With this in mind, let's go through the Goku's fight against Vegeta. The prince, as stated later in the story, has a power level of 18,000, more than twice than Nappa and Goku's. So, I'll give Vegeta a power of 24. Again, the difference of 1 digit doesn't seem like much, but if you feel like it, it can be easily interpreted as an increase of at least double the power. Because of the difference of strength, Goku can't even make Vegeta fight seriously against him. With no other option left, Goku decides to use the limited Kaioken, increasing his power to 24, almost catching up to Vegeta, but even then, the prince is not just very powerful, but also highly skilled, so he is able to keep up without much difficulty. Once again, Goku is in a difficult situation. Even though with the limited Kaioken, he is almost as strong as Vegeta, the technique still put a lot of stress over his body, so he won't be able to fight Vegeta before his own stamina runs out first. His only option is to use the dangerous, maximum Kaioken and try to defeat Vegeta as fast as possible. Upon using the maximum Kaioken, Goku reach a level of 25, surpassing Vegeta and overwhelming him temporarily. Full of rage, Vegeta decides to blow up the planet with his Gallic gun, and Goku responds with his own Kamehameha while using the limited Kaioken. They struggle for a while, but Goku uses the maximum Kaioken once again, overwhelming the Gallic gun of Vegeta. From now on, the fight still is pretty much the same, but there is one important thing left, the Ozaru form of Vegeta. In the story, Vegeta stated that the Ozaru form increases the power of the Saiyan 10 times over, but you know already how I feel about multipliers. So, our little change is that instead of saying it increases their power 10 times over, he only states that it increases their power considerably, so there it is, an easy fix. So Vegeta in his Ozaru form have a power of 29. Naturally, the Ozaru form have many weaknesses such as the tail and the condition of looking at the moon, also it only increases the raw strength, but in terms of speed and agility, the increase is comparatively much lesser. Before we finish, we also have King Kai left to rank. In the manga, he himself stated to be weaker than Nappa and Vegeta, but in the Dragon Ball Z's filler, he stated that he was stronger than the Ginyu Force. Personally, I prefer the filler's version more, since it gives more respect towards an actual major god from the Dragon Ball universe, so I rank him at a power level of 27. Pretty high up, but it doesn't really affect the plot at all. So we are finally done with the SAIYAN arc, and personally, I am pretty happy with the end result so far. As a recap, the most important changes we did was indirectly making characters such as Kami-sama and King Piccolo still somewhat relevant in the power scaling. Also, Raditz is not instantly power creeped by everyone in the story. We also established a change over power multipliers, specifically from the Kaioken and the Ozaru form, which will help us in the future during the FRIEZA arc. There are also a lot of other minor changes, such as the power of the Cybermen and the Z fighters, which also alleviates the power creeping. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great day. The time has finally come. In this video we will try to rescale the FRIEZA arc's power levels. In case you haven't seen the previous videos, I recommend you to at least watch the SAIYAN arc's video, so you have a good idea where are we at with the power levels so far. So let's start right away from where we left off last video, just after Vegeta defeat on Earth. Since Piccolo died, our heroes decided to go to the planet Namek, with the purpose to revive everyone that died against the Saiyans. Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma went together to planet Namek, while Goku stayed on Earth healing, but after recovering, he goes to Namek too. Before anything, we gotta talk about a very important concept introduced during the Namek arc, which is the Saiyan Zenkai, also just called Saiyan power. If you don't know what it is, basically, it's a biological Saiyan trait that increases their power every time they survive severe mortal injuries or also after they survive a very prolonged and hard battle. The amount of power that it increases seems to be mostly random, or in other words, it depends of whatever the plot requires. Although, I don't think it is necessarily an unbelievable thing to happen, since the randomness can be attributed to it just being a genetic mutation, similar to how evolution works in real life. So that would be a decent explanation as to why the Saiyan power increase is mostly random. But still, I would like to add one extra important detail to the Zenkai trait. So, the Saiyan Zenkai is very present during the Namek arc, especially with Vegeta, who abused the heck out of it, but we are led to believe it always has been present implicitly from the beginning, tying it up with Goku's increase of power, especially during the OG Dragon Ball. But after the FRIEZA arc, the Saiyan Zenkais disappeared for the most part, only making somewhat of a comeback in Dragon Ball Super. A good explanation for this, and also a good way to avoid any further power creeping by the Saiyan, in their base form at least, is that the Zenkai biologic purpose is to push the Saiyan faster to the base power threshold necessary to achieve the Super Saiyan transformation. Now, this doesn't mean that once reaching the required base power, the Saiyan can easily transform to Super Saiyan. It only means that they can now potentially transform if the other necessary conditions are also met. Once the base threshold of power is reached, the Zenkai's increase becomes very low in comparison to before, explaining why they seem to disappear from the story. With that in mind, we can finally start addressing the power level of Goku after recovering from the fight against Vegeta during the SAIYAN arc. As we stated last video, Goku previously had a power level of 23, but after the post-Vegeta fight Zenkai, he gained a power level of 24, possessing a strength similar to the Saiyan Prince. In the other hand, Vegeta himself also increased his power due to a Zenkai after fighting Goku and the rest, going from a power of 24 to 25. With his newfound strength, the Prince, once reaching Namek, fights another elite soldier from the FRIEZA army, Kiwi, who was stated to have a similar power level as the Saiyan before his last Zenkai. Due to the difference of power and, more importantly, skill, Vegeta manages to kill Kiwi pretty easily. The next opponent of Vegeta is another elite soldier, Dodoria, who in the original story was quite a bit weaker than Vegeta after the Zenkai boost, but in this reworking, I'll leave the Prince being only slightly stronger than Dodoria, but due to the Saiyan participating in a lot more intense combat situations, he outskills her easily, killing Dodoria without mercy. Clearly showing that raw power is not the only factor when fighting someone with a similar strength. After disposing of Dodoria, Vegeta confronts her partner, Zarbon, who also have a similar power level. But he has a secret true form that he hides from everyone due to being too ugly or something. Upon transforming, Zarbon's power also increases to 25. Vegeta is caught by surprise not only by the hideous appearance of Zarbon, but also by his power. Without any hesitation, Zarbon takes advantage of the element of surprise, and headbutts Vegeta's head with extreme strength, leaving the Saiyan highly disoriented for the rest of the fight. Still, Vegeta is able to counterattack somewhat successfully, but is not enough. Zarbon overpowers him and finish him off for good, launching the prince straight to the ground at very high speed. Vegeta is badly defeated and left for dead by Zarbon. Later, Zarbon is ordered by Frieza to find Vegeta again. Due to the Saiyan's grave injuries, he is sent to a healing machine to recover from his injuries, so he can be interrogated later. Naturally, Vegeta gets another Zenkai after healing, reaching a power level of 25, similar to Zarbon's. But during their second confrontation, the situation was reversed from the first fight. Vegeta gets the upper hand very fast, even using cheese tactics like tossing sand to Zarbon's eyes. Yeah, he actually did that. Despite being somewhat equal in power, Vegeta once again came on top due to skills and experience, blowing up Zarbon from inside out. After all this fighting, Vegeta, Krillin, and Gohan were almost able to collect the 7 Dragon Balls, but unfortunately for them, they were surrounded by the strongest fighters from the entire Frieza army, except for the Emperor himself, the powerful Ginyu Force. Since we already rated Vegeta's power during this fight, we gotta continue with Krillin and Gohan. After Krillin's hidden potential was unlocked by Guru, his power level went from 20 to 24, a pretty huge increase, and this was mostly thanks to the highly effective training done by Kami-sama. In the other hand, after Gohan's hidden potential was unlocked by Guru, his power level went from 20 to 25. This is not including if Gohan is enraged. Guldo is considered the weakest member of the Ginyu Force, and if we exclude his psychic powers, then yeah, he is by far the weakest, ranking him around the power level of 22, which would be around the strength of Raditz. But if we include the mental abilities of Guldo as part of his power level, then I would like to rank him at around 25. After all, his psychic powers had the upper hand against Gohan and Krillin, both fighters with a power level of 24 and 25 respectively, and also, Guldo was killed due to Vegeta backstab. As a side note, I would like to clarify something about the original story regarding the power levels of Krillin and Gohan after their potential was unlocked. Since there are a lot of ambiguity, as if their power-up was gradual over time or not, especially considering a comment that Vegeta did regarding this, saying that Gohan and Krillin's power has been steadily increasing during all the fights in Namek. This statement can be interpreted in many ways, so to avoid any confusion, we will just say that the power-up from the hidden potential is instant and not gradual. With that out of the way, the Guldo fight goes essentially the same as in the original story, except this time, Guldo manages to tire out Gohan and Krillin a lot more due to his psychic powers, decreasing their strength and stamina for their next fight as a result. Following Guldo's death, Rikum joins the fray and prepares to fight Vegeta one-on-one. Not without before taunting both Krillin and Gohan to help the prince if they wanted to. Rikum's power level would be 25, although still stronger than Vegeta by a few decimals. Let's say that the Saiyan's level is around 25.1. And Rikum's is around 25.5, which could easily be interpreted as about 40% stronger than Vegeta. The fight starts with Vegeta immediately rushing in, doing a combo on Rikum, and finishing with a very powerful energy blast, which by the way, it looks awfully similar to the final Flash. Vegeta clearly used almost everything behind his attacks. After all, even if that somehow killed Rikum, there are 2 other Ginyu Force members waiting to fight. Because of this, Vegeta still saved some energy just in case. Unfortunately for the prince, Rikum was able to tank all the damage. In the story, it was stated that he hardly took any damage, but I would like to add an extra detail about this and state that Rikum's specialty is physical endurance. In other words, he is very good at using his ki to specifically increase his endurance to levels beyond to what would be possible for other fighters with a similar power level. I find this concept to have a lot of potential, and I am pretty sure it was never stated in the story if this is actually the case, at least not explicitly. But we kinda can see a bit of this specialization thing with the Jinyu force. Let me explain. We can see with Guldo that he sacrifices most of his physical stats for more psychic power. Rikum maybe sacrifices agility and speed in exchange for more endurance. Berter does something similar, sacrificing endurance or physical strength for more speed. Finally, Jesse uses his power in a balanced way. There are also other things that are not really well explored in the story, such as how much the mental state and current emotions of a character influences their key power and overall performance in combat. I hope in the future these concepts are more used in the story. It would not just help with the power creeping, but also, it gives the character's fighting style and personality a lot more importance, plus, it would make discussions a lot more interesting too. Now, going back to the main topic. Rikum is able to endure the rush attack from Vegeta and starts beating him up. The prince, despite being worn out, is still able to hold his own for a while, but the giant eventually overpowers him. Before he is able to finish him off, Krillin attacks Rikum during a critical moment while Gohan saves Vegeta from the attack. Despite his injuries, Rikum is still able to recover, showing off his extraordinary tankiness. Rikum surprises Krillin and defeats him with a single powerful attack to a critical spot. The only one left to fight the giant is Gohan, who is still partially worn out from the battle against Guldo and is also intimidated by the extremely resilient Rikum. Despite that, Goku's son fights valiantly, the end result doesn't change, and Gohan is left in a near-death state, defeated by Rikum. Vegeta, Krillin, and Gohan are all about to die by the hands of Rikum, but thankfully for them, Goku is able to finally land to Namek and with extreme speed, saves them from certain death. As we said earlier in the video, after the fight against Vegeta, Goku had a power level of 24, but thanks to training with the gravity machine, while recovering from a couple of near-death states, his strength increases to a power level of 26. After giving Senzu beans to his friends and to Vegeta, Goku proceeds to humiliate a highly confident and also tired Rikum, defeating him after he left himself vulnerable to an attack with a single, powerful strike to a critical spot. Due to Jesse and Berter relying too much on their scouts, they still believe that Goku is weaker than them, despite him defeating Rikum with a single attack, believing that it was just luck from part of the Saiyan, since Rikum was already tired from his previous fights. Both Jinyu Force members surround Goku and start attacking, but he is able to block them and mocks them, saying that they keep leaving themselves vulnerable due to their overconfidence. Jesse and Berter became more and more frustrated during the fight, being incapable of maintaining their composure. Because of this, they weren't fighting in optimal conditions. This wasn't just a case of power difference, but also of skill and discipline. Goku ends up beating Berter with ease, forcing Jesse to escape, hoping that his captain, Jinyu, is able to beat Goku. Doesn't take too long for Jinyu to catch up to our heroes again, and a new confrontation begins between Goku and the captain. Jinyu have a power level of 26 similar to Goku, but still a few decimals higher. Both warriors fight momentarily, and after a while, Goku decides to show off his Kaioken. By just using his limited Kaioken, Goku is able to reach a power level of 27, surpassing Jinyu. During this exact moment, the captain decides to steal the Saiyan's body, which he does successfully. At the same time this fight occurs, Frieza is looking for Guru, but is stopped by the Namekian warrior, Nail. Nail power level is around 25, similar to the Jinyu Force members. And Frieza, in his first form, has a power level of 27, being stronger than Jinyu by a few decimals. With such a difference of power, Nail had no chance against the Emperor and is defeated rather quickly. Going back to Jinyu, after he stole Goku's body, his power level dropped dramatically, due to not being able to control it properly, having a strength around 24, weaker than Krillin. Vegeta power after the Zenkai from the Rikum fight increases once again, reaching a level of 26.5. With this newfound strength, Vegeta disposes of a scared Jesse pretty easily. Gohan also have a Zenkai boost from the Rikum fight, increasing his power to 26. Once Jinyu realized he couldn't control Goku's body properly, he decides to try stealing Vegeta's body, but his plan is ruined by Goku, who gets back his body, although really badly injured due to Vegeta. Because of this, Goku uses a healing machine to recover. After all these events, Gohan and Krillin were able to use the Dragon Balls and proceeds to revive Piccolo, also teleporting him to Namek. Frieza, infuriated from losing his chance to wish for immortality, finally catches up to Vegeta and the others. The final battle begins. With a power level of 27, Frieza is still stronger than our heroes, but Vegeta believes it is possible to defeat him if the three of them fight together. After a short exchange, Vegeta was able to hold off Frieza, although clearly struggling. Despite this, the prince is well aware that the Emperor possesses a transformation and tells him to show his true form already. Consequently, Frieza transforms to his second form and increases his power from 27 to 27.5. So yeah, it is not a huge power-up, but feels like a necessary change to keep the power creep down. To be honest, I feel like the second, and especially third transformation of Frieza are a bit unnecessary. I suppose it helps to increase the tension and the feeling of hopelessness during the fight, but it is not something that it couldn't have been done by just using Frieza's second form. The third transformation could have been removed from the story, and it wouldn't change it drastically. In any case, I still like all of them, so the easiest solution is to decrease the power-up of both forms. With a new increase of power and a terrorific appearance, Frieza intimidates and scares his opponents, especially after showing off his destructive power. Frieza rushes in and stabs Krillin. Upon seeing this, Gohan enters a frenzy of rage, increasing his power to more than 27, almost equal to Frieza. Enraged, he surprises the Emperor and is able to land many attacks. But unfortunately, Frieza's second form is specialized in increasing his endurance, resulting in mostly minor injuries. After the attack, Gohan's temporary rage boost finishes. The tyrant proves to be too powerful and proceeds to badly damage Gohan, leaving him close to dead, but before it's too late, Piccolo is finally able to catch up. After dying against Nappa, Piccolo trained for some time with King Kai, alongside Tien and the others, allowing the Namekian to increase his power. Before we continue, there is a bit of an issue with Piccolo's power during this arc that we need to address. In the original story, it is implied that Piccolo became way stronger during the very short period of time training with King Kai, otherwise, he wouldn't have been so confident about helping out during the Frieza fight, but becoming so strong in such a short time, it's just not feasible. As a matter of fact, if Piccolo didn't absorb Nail, he wouldn't have been of any help whatsoever against Frieza. So considering this, a good small change to the story would have been making Piccolo unconsciously feel the need to go to Namek, which he would just explain, briefly and vaguely, as someone calling him from there. Once arriving to Namek and finding Nail, the dying warrior tells Piccolo that it was him who was calling for any Namekian warrior alive, so they could fuse and defeat Frieza. I think that can be an effective solution, plus it adds a bit more of mystery to the Namekian lore. Going back to ranking Piccolo's power, after training with King Kai, I rank him at around 24 of power at most. After fusing with Nail, he reaches a level of 28. In the original story, both Piccolo and Frieza's second form are about equal in power, but I will be making some changes. Starting by making Piccolo surpass the Emperor in his second form in power by a few decimals. Continuing with the battle, Piccolo have the upper hand over Frieza, although with his great endurance, the damage is minimized decently well. By taking advantage of his high resistance, Frieza prioritizes offense over defense and is able to successfully damage Piccolo with a powerful combo. Although Piccolo's power has been slightly worn off during the fight, Frieza has been taking more damage in comparison. Piccolo finally decides to fight seriously and takes off his heavy clothes, and upon seeing this, Frieza realizes that his second form won't be enough and tells Piccolo and the others that he still have 2 transformations left. Everyone feels demoralized after such revelations, and Frieza proceeds to transform once again. Frieza's third form have a power level of 28 and his endurance specialization changes to speed increase instead. Also, every minor injuries he received from Piccolo has been healed after transforming. Despite Piccolo also having a power of 28, his strength and stamina has been partially worn off already, and his mental state has been negatively impacted too. Adding all of those circumstances, including Frieza's speed surpassing Piccolo's, the result is the Namekian being overpowered rather quickly from multiple beam attacks. Gohan, who was healed by Denda, increases his power once again through a Zenkai from 26 to 27. And by being enraged, his power increases to 28 temporarily. Gohan proceeds to attack Frieza with a full-powered energy blast, which if the Emperor didn't manage to deflect, he could have been badly injured or worse. This time, Frieza won't take any chances and decides to transform to his final and true form. Meanwhile, Vegeta asks Krillin to almost kill him, that way he can increase his power again after being healed. After finally reaching his final form, Frieza have a power level of over 30, which makes him the first fighter that I rank into tier 30. In Frieza's honor, I name this category as Intergalactic Emperor, or if you like it more, Intergalactic Force. Vegeta gets a new Zenkai boost and his power increases to level 28, surpassing Frieza's third form by a few decimals, but obviously Vegeta is no match against the true form of the Emperor. Frieza humiliates and kills Vegeta, but before dying, the prince begs Goku to defeat the Emperor, kickstarting the final battle of the Namek arc. Thanks to the healing machine, Goku gets his final, substantial power-up through a Zenkai, reaching a level of 28.5, slightly stronger than Vegeta. And also, finally reaching the required threshold of power to transform into the Super Saiyan form. Goku and Frieza's battle goes basically the same as in the original story. Despite becoming so powerful, Goku is still no match for final form Frieza, who is mostly playing around. Not even the limited Kaioken, with a power level of 29, is able to damage Frieza in any substantial way. With no choice left, Goku uses a full-powered attack, while using the maximum Kaioken, reaching temporarily a power level over 30. The attack was dangerous even for Frieza, who had to use very close to his full power to deflect the Saiyan's attack. The maximum Kaioken wasn't enough to defeat Frieza, and Goku knows he can't use the technique once again without completely depleting any energy left. The only option left is to use the Spirit Bomb, which Goku manages to successfully use against Frieza, nearly killing him. But once again, he proved to be too resilient, although this time, his energies also worn out to some extent. After revealing himself once again, Frieza attacks Piccolo and kills Krillin. And we all know what happened next. Goku, in his Super Saiyan form, reaches a power level of 31.5. And manages to surpass a suppressed final form Frieza. Naturally, the Emperor can't be holding back anymore against the Super Saiyan, so he goes into his full-powered state, which he can't maintain properly for long periods of time, but it is enough to rank Frieza with a power level almost identical as Goku's. Obviously, since Frieza hasn't mastered his full power, he can't maintain that level for longer than Goku does, so he is ultimately defeated and almost killed by the legendary Super Saiyan. Before finishing with the video, we have one interesting character left to rank. The nameless Namekian, or as we are going to call him, the original Piccolo. In case you don't know who I am talking about, I am basically referring to Kami-sama and King Piccolo before they split into two. So in terms of power level, we can only make assumptions about how powerful the original Piccolo was, since there only has been a few mentions about his power during the Frieza arc. The first mention was by Guru, stating that Piccolo, being a prodigy from the Dragon Clan, could have been only killed by a Super Saiyan. Another mention to the power of the original Piccolo is by Nail, saying that Piccolo can surpass Frieza's power if he merged again with Kami-sama. Although, most likely, Nail was referring just to first form Frieza. But another possible good piece of evidence is that after Piccolo merged with Kami-sama during the Cell arc, he was able to surpass the power of a Super Saiyan by a large margin. So, maybe it was always intended for the original Piccolo to be at least somewhat equal to a Frieza or a Namek Arc Super Saiyan Goku. My head says that the power of the original Piccolo was below than Frieza full power, but my heart tells me they are equal. Either way, it doesn't really affect the plot at all, and at the end of the day, this whole series of videos is just for fun. So, I will just rank the original Piccolo to rank 30. And with that, we are finally done with the FRIEZA arc. It has been a long way to get here, and we still have a lot to cover in the future. The final result so far seems good enough. For instance, the power levels seems to fit pretty well in comparison to the canon version, although there are some characters with a power level too close to each other, but it was really inevitable. And more importantly, we didn't make any major change to the plot. Plus, we added more depth to the fights, without falling into the trap of only considering the power levels and not any other factor such as skill and mentality. Welcome back to my channel. On this occasion we are continuing with the Android and Cell arc, and we getting really close to the end of Dragon Ball Z, but before starting with our usual business, I want to make some clarifications about the previous videos and the series as a whole. First, I got a comment last time clarifying for me that these videos are just my opinion and I am not Akira Toriyama. And yes, I should have clarified before that these changes are just a personal idea, and as a matter of fact, I am not Akira, so I am sorry if there was any misunderstanding regarding that. Secondly, about the power levels itself, I've been trying to emphasize during the entire series that the level of a character are not the only factor that decides who wins in a fight. There are other factors such as mental state, limitations of a specific form, fighting styles, special abilities, skill, and so on. Is pure power the most important factor to win a fight? Yes, it is, especially if the difference of strength is too much, but at least for this pseudo-rewriting of the plot, I want to make a lot more emphasis into these other factors making a difference in a fight during the story. I could get a lot more into this, but perhaps I could make a shorter video about explaining my whole reasoning behind this power scaling. If you are interested, let me know. And third clarification, related to my two previous points. I am happy to read your take on these videos, like, what changes would you make to the Dragon Ball power scaling, or do you have any specific question about the power level I gave to certain character? Let me know in the comments, I would love to reply. With all of that being said, let's start from where we left off last video. By the end of the FRIEZA arc, the Super Saiyan Goku defeats him and is able to escape the explosion of planet Namek, and the rest of our heroes are revived and sent back to Earth. Around 2 years passes after the Namek events, and the relative peaceful times on Earth are possibly coming to an abrupt end. A renewed Frieza and his father, King Cold, are approaching the planet with thirst of vengeance. Every relevant fighter on Earth senses the powerful ki of both tyrants and reunites to defend their home planet even if they die while trying. But completely out of nowhere, an unknown warrior shows up and confronts the mechanized Frieza, but not before transforming into a Super Saiyan, surprising everyone present, including the tyrant. Completely vivid, upon looking at a Super Saiyan, Frieza, without thinking, goes into the offensive immediately, but the unknown warrior, Trunks, is able to dodge the attacks. Without playing around, like a pure Saiyan would do in a fight, the unknown warrior goes straight to the kill and slash Frieza into many pieces. This time, unlike Goku, Trunks finishes Frieza for good, killing him without mercy. His father King Cold, even after looking at his son being cut into pieces, instead of getting ready to fight properly the warrior, he decides to underestimate him and attribute the victory of the Saiyan to his sword, believing the weapon was the only reason he won. Once receiving the weapon, King Cold, unsurprisingly to anyone, tries to backstab Trunks, using his sword to attack him, without any of the mastery required to use it properly. Trunks blocks the attack and proceeds to blast King Cold's vital spot, killing him almost instantly. After this, Trunks meets Goku and warns him about the future androids and the future timeline. Now, let's start ranking in power Frieza. In the original story, the Tyrant states that in his new mech form, he is stronger than before, and he can possibly deal with Goku in his Super Saiyan form by himself. Personally, I don't like the fact that we are already power creeping the strength of Goku and Frieza final form during the Namek fight, especially considering how hard Mech Frieza was fodderized by Trunks. So our first minor change is that Frieza, even in his mech form, still has trouble using his entire strength, and we only get to see him in his suppressed, final form transformation. In other words, Frieza can also go into his full power state even in his mech form. But the question remains: is Frieza in his mech form stronger than his previous version? My answer is yes and no. In terms of raw power, Mech Frieza is more powerful, although not by too much. But at the same time, he is weaker from the perspective that he doesn't have his original body, and he is mostly a cyborg. In other words, Frieza is not accustomed at using his new mechanized body, especially when it comes to fighting, and the only reason he decided to go to Earth so early, despite these flaws, is because Frieza is a crybaby, and he got his daddy to help him this time. So considering the changes I just mentioned, Trunks was able to kill Frieza so easily not only due to the difference of power, but all the circumstances surrounding the Tyrant. Plus, evidently, Frieza was totally not thinking straight after seeing a Super Saiyan, so he fighted even more poorly against a serious Trunks. With that being said, I give Mech Frieza a level of 30, and to an hypothetical, full power mech form, a level of 31, just a few decimals ahead from his original body. Next, we have King Cold, who in the original story has a power level around Mech Frieza and possibly slightly stronger. A change I would do is to make King Cold around the strength of the suppressed form of Mech Frieza. Now, how King Cold got beaten so easily despite his power? Well, one of the reasons is that he was so arrogant that instead of using his own power, he decided to use a sword that he never wielded before to kill someone stronger than him. Another reason is that King Cold lacks a refined ki control, similar to his son, and also, he doesn't know how to sense ki, so he didn't just completely miscalculated the true power of Trunks, but also, he didn't properly impregnate the sword with his ki to empower it beyond its natural capabilities. There are a lot of theories about King Cold, claiming he was in his second form, and that he have at least 2 other transformations, making him way stronger than what we actually saw in the story. Personally, I also believe this theory, but at the moment, I haven't thought of how much power King Cold really have. So, let me know in the comments what's your opinion in the matter, how powerful you think King Cold really was. Regarding Trunks' power level in the original story, he should be around Goku's. Personally, I rank him below him only due to the fact that I want to keep the original, supposed legendary Super Saiyan as the strongest warrior, at least for now. I want to rank Goku after coming back from the planet Yadrat nearly the same in power as during his fight against Frieza in Namek. In the original story, I assume he got stronger, but personally, being able to transform into Super Saiyan at will and also learning the teleportation technique are impressive increase of power by themselves, even if it's not exactly raw power. Moving on, 3 years passes since the arrival of Trunks, and our heroes trained extensively, preparing to fight against the cyborgs, androids. Eventually, the time comes and the warriors gather to face the powerful androids. Their names are simply Android 19 and Android 20, the latter being the genius Dr. Gero. To avoid any casualty, Goku himself decides to fight the androids alone, using his Super Saiyan. Dr. Gero reveals he has been spying on Goku and the others, but he didn't expect such a powerful form. Despite that, he is sure that they will be able to beat him and Android 19 start the fight against Saiyan. At first, Goku have the upper hand over the android, but something seems off. The Saiyan is clearly struggling, despite not yet receiving direct damage from 19. At first, Goku's allies believe the android is absorbing his energies by using the devices in his hands that he used previously to absorb an energy blast from Goku, but soon they realize that Goku is having a heart attack due to the sickness that Trunks warned him about. Our hero can't keep up due to the symptoms, and sooner than later, he is defeated by the clown android. But before he is eliminated, our hero is saved by no other than the Prince of all Saiyan, Vegeta. The prince has been training extensively during the last 3 years, and thanks to his efforts, he was able to achieve the Super Saiyan transformation. Proud of himself, Vegeta fights Android 19 and proceeds to brutally defeat him, even letting him to absorb his power just to confirm how the androids are able to drain energy. Dr. Gero escapes to his lab, hoping to activate the remaining androids, but not before being momentarily overpowered by Piccolo himself, who has increased his strength considerably since the Namek events. Before we continue with the story, let's rank the relevant characters so far. First, we have the androids 19 and 20. In the original story, both of them were below the power of a Super Saiyan, although Dr. Gero believed they should be able to beat one of them if they increased their own strength by draining the Saiyan energy. So, I think it's fair to say that the androids' base power should be above the Saiyan base form, and after increasing their strength by draining energy, they should be somewhat closer to a Super Saiyan power, although still weaker overall. After all, Dr. Gero only spied on our heroes till the Vegeta fight during the SAIYAN ARC, and he just calculated how much stronger they could possibly become, and assumed that reaching the power level of a Super Saiyan wasn't possible. So, giving the androids a level below 30 is fair, especially if we consider that they can drain energy from their opponents, and also, they can take advantage of their lack of ki, making it impossible for the others to sense them. Next, we have Vegeta, who in the original story, increased his power immensely after training for 3 years, and it was heavily implied that he surpassed Goku. I feel like this is okay for the most part, although, I would like to not make the increase of power too big, stating that the bigger gains in strength from Vegeta were mostly through the Super Saiyan form and not necessarily his base power. One of my reasons is because it was stated later in the story that the Saiyan were almost at their limit and their only way to increase their power even more was by reaching a stronger transformation. I will get into this more later. Also, I would like to keep the base power of the Saiyan below the 30 tier. With that being said, I rank Vegeta base strength over 28.5, surpassing Goku. And in his Super Saiyan form, I rank Vegeta a power of 31, surpassing Goku's by a few decimals. In the original story, Goku trained with Gohan and Piccolo for 3 years in preparation for the androids, but due to his sickness, we couldn't really see how much he improved since then, but it can be assumed that he is weaker than Vegeta since Piccolo himself stated that the prince is stronger than Goku, and he should know how powerful the latter is since they trained together. In any case, Goku power rank will stay pretty much the same, only very slightly stronger. If I had to give a reason for the lack of improvement, I would say it was mainly because Goku focused in helping Piccolo, and especially Gohan, to catch up in terms of power with him. Moving on to Piccolo, in the original story, the Namekian improved a lot thanks to Goku during the 3 years of training. Reaching a power that shouldn't be too far from Goku in his Super Saiyan form during the Namek arc, and considering how hard he was beating Dr. Gero, it doesn't sound too far-fetched. So, I rank Piccolo from a power of 28 to 30.5. I would like to take note that Piccolo after fusing with Nail increased his overall latent potential, so even a normal training did wonders to his strength. Finally, we have the rest of the Z fighters, who sadly, all of them, with the exception of Gohan, became irrelevant in terms of power. I will go through all of them very fast, since there isn't much to explain, but I want to keep them somewhat close to the strength of the Saiyan in their base form. Yamcha and Tien, post-King Kai training, have a level of 22 and 23 respectively, and after training for 3 years, and applying the teaching of King Kai, they reach a power level of 26 and 28 respectively. Admittedly, I am biased towards Tien, since he is one of the most hard-working fighters in the entire story, and he never stopped training, so if I have any chance to boost him without meddling with the story, I'll do it. Krillin, before the training, had a power very close to 25, and after the 3 years, he reaches a level over 28, slightly ahead of Tien, but below base form Goku. Finally, we have Gohan with a power of 27, and after training for 3 years, he reached a level of over 28, close to Goku during the Namek arc. Fast forward into the story, Dr. Gero is able to activate both androids 17 and 18, but they in turn crush Gero's head. Both androids ignore our heroes for the most part, but naturally, the prince's ego is too big to handle such disrespect and taunt the androids to fight him. Android 18 eventually accepts the challenge and fights Vegeta one-on-one. At the beginning, it looks like both warriors are somewhat even, but as time goes on, the weakness of such a powerful, yet taxing for the body transformation, such as the Super Saiyan, start showing, especially against an android that possesses unlimited amount of energy and stamina. Eventually, Android 18 overpowers Vegeta and defeats the Saiyan very decisively, not only breaking his arm, but also his ego. At this point, poor Trunks, upon seeing this, probably is recalling past traumatic events in his head, and without being able to control himself, he charges in to fight the android, attempting to save his father, but without even realizing, he is assaulted pretty hard from behind by Android 17, almost knocking him out. Piccolo and Chad Tien also joins in to help Trunks out, but obviously, after seeing how the two androids defeated two Super Saiyan with relative ease, they should know that they have no chance of winning, but they try anyway, and consequently, Android 17 subdue both of them. After this humiliating defeat, Vegeta realizes that the Super Saiyan form is not enough to beat the androids, and decides to train again, with the objective to reach an even stronger transformation. In the other hand, Piccolo finally accepted that it's time to fuse with Kami-sama. Now, it is time to talk about the power level of both Androids 17 and 18, and I have a lot of thoughts about this whole topic. In the original story, Android 17 and 18 are way stronger than Frieza, there is no doubt about that, but the real question is how in the hell Dr. Gero was able to build two androids that did not only have unlimited energy, but also were even more powerful than the Emperor of the Universe Frieza? I would be open to believe it if we were shown incredible advanced technology by the habitants from Earth, but in the story, it is not particularly high in comparison to other places in the universe. I tried to come up to some possible explanations, and the one that to me made the most sense is that Dr. Gero was somehow able to recollect incredible advanced data and technology from the spaceship used by Frieza to land on Earth, but then again, it was destroyed by Trunks, and also, Dr. Gero probably didn't even know about Frieza coming to Earth, since it was his supercomputer that collected the DNA of Frieza and his father. The only way to make this theory fit is to change some parts of the story, but maybe one of you that is watching this video come up with a good explanation for this whole matter about the android's power. If you have, feel free to share. After searching for some ideas in the internet, I found one that I enjoyed quite a lot, and I think it has a lot of potential, and it essentially goes as follows. Dr. Gero used all the data recollected by his spy robots related to the fights and the training regimen of our heroes and used it as mental simulations for Android 17 and 18 and even Android 16. The androids went through countless of simulations in their head, and if we add their unlimited energy, it created a perpetual state of training without the need of actually using their bodies. By using this method, Dr. Gero increased the power of the androids to exorbitant levels and stopped the simulations once he felt that it may be too dangerous. The idea of mental simulations increasing the power of the fighter has actually happened in the story before, since we have seen Krillin and Gohan using this training method when they were traveling to Namek, and I assume Piccolo also does something similar by using meditation. Also, this would explain why the androids from the future timeline are weaker than the present ones, but we are going to get more into that later. Thanks to the user of Quora, Professor Prel, for coming up with this idea. With all of that being said, I rank both Android 17 and 18 to a power level of 32, making them stronger than the likes of Frieza, but not by a huge margin. They also are not particularly stronger than the Super Saiyans, but having the advantage of unlimited energy and stamina, plus not having a detectable ki, feels like a huge enough advantage, so we don't really have any need to make the androids so much stronger than them as it was portrayed in the original story. Welcome to my channel. This is the continuation from the Android Arcs video, so make sure to at least watch that one to have full context. Without further ado, let's start, and thank you for watching. Continuing with the story, Goku is able to recover from his sickness, thanks to Trunks' medicine, and introduces the hyperbolic time chamber to Vegeta, so he can train there with Trunks for an entire year. Meanwhile, Piccolo finally fuses with Kami-sama, once again becoming the original Namekian that came to Earth so long ago. The new powered-up Piccolo decides to find and exterminate a new threat to the entire world, the soon-to-be perfect Cell, the biologic android. Once finding Cell, Piccolo decides to allow the monster to drain the life energy out of his arm, with the intention to trick him into revealing his identity and plans. The tactic worked, and once Piccolo learned everything he needed to, he regenerates his arm and prepares to squash the bug monster. After sensing Piccolo's power and his allies arriving to the scene, Cell decides to escape by using the solar flare. Fast forward into the story, the androids arrives to Rashi House looking for Goku, and Piccolo decides to face all of the 3 androids by himself, with the intention to buy time for Goku and the others. Luckily for Piccolo, Android 17 decides to confront him alone, in a one-on-one battle. Once the fight starts, Piccolo gets the upper hand, surprising the androids due to his increased powers, but the Namekian warrior is well aware of Android 17's unlimited energy, so he decides to use a very powerful attack, surrounding his enemy with many energy blasts, leaving him with no escape route. Piccolo used huge amount of energies to perform this attack, which reduced his overall power for the rest of the fight, but the possible rewards would be huge. He wouldn't just be able to surely defeat Android 17, but also deny the opportunity for Cell to reach his perfect form. Piccolo was willing to sacrifice his life for the cause, but for better or worse, Android 17 had a very powerful ability, specialized in defense, the energy barrier. With this barrier, Android 17 was able to survive the powerful attack of Piccolo, and from now on, the battle will be much equal between the two, since Piccolo's power dropped after using such attack. Although eventually, Android 17's stamina started to pay off, and the Namekian warrior's energy began to wear down slowly but surely. From this specific point of the story, I want to make some changes, and I will explain my reasoning later. The battle between both warriors came to an abrupt end after a powered-up Cell blasted Piccolo from behind by surprise, heavily injuring the Namekian. Cell jumps in, close to Android 17, and without warning attacks him, and unexpectedly, 17 looks almost paralyzed without apparent reason. Piccolo, who was severely wounded, was able to regenerate, although his power dropped a lot as a result, but more importantly, he was able to warn the androids about the intentions of Cell to absorb them and reach perfection. Android 17 is able to break from his strange paralysis to some extent and starts fighting off Cell, although very sloppily and seemingly weaker than usual. Cell, with a power equal to the android, is able to subdue him with relative ease, but then, Piccolo helps 17 and uses almost all of his energies left to release his light grenade attack, but Cell was able to dodge the blast. Android 16, who was observing the whole situation, warned Android 18 to not get close to Cell, since he is detecting strange electromagnetic waves coming from his body, and it seems to be interfering with 17's fighting capabilities. Before Cell is able to absorb 17, the redhead android steps in and saves his friend. After punching Cell far away, Android 16 reveals that according to his calculations, he is stronger than current Cell. The bio-android, due to not being able to sense 16's energies, assumes that he is lying, believing his power shouldn't be higher than the other androids. Cell proceeds to fight the tall android, but it starts becoming clear that it wasn't any lie, and 16 seems to be stronger than himself. Unfortunately, Cell was able to barely dodge a powerful blast attack from Android 16 by moving underground and burrowing towards 17, catching him by surprise, and finally being able to absorb him, and now, Cell is one step closer to his perfect form. Alright, so we back to ranking the power levels, starting with Imperfect Cell, before he increased his power by draining dry countless of humans. In the original story, Cell is weaker than the androids, but I assume he should be around the power of a Super Saiyan. Personally, considering our current power scale, putting him around 31 seems good enough. Now, if we consider Imperfect Cell after increasing his power considerably by absorbing many humans, then he should be much stronger than the androids and Piccolo post-Kamisama fusion, at least, that is how the original story went. Honestly, I am not a big fan of that, and I consider this case an actual example of unnecessary power creeping. For one, is weird, to say the least, that by just absorbing humans, Cell was able to increase his power by such huge amounts. Secondly, I feel like it just sucks that after getting a well-deserved power-up, Piccolo couldn't catch a victory, and he was completely outclassed by Cell in his imperfect form. If it was the semi-perfect form, that wouldn't be too bad, but no, not even that. So personally, I will make the change and rank this version of Imperfect Cell at a power of 32. Now, of course, this means that his strength is similar to the androids, which means that the decision of Cell to go searching for them before he surpassed their power is somewhat questionable, but as I mentioned before, the change I did regarding Cell releasing specific electro waves that interferes with Android 17 and 18 powers could make perfect sense. After all, the supercomputer that created Cell would make sure that his creation is able to absorb the androids without much trouble, so making a specialized counter against them seems pretty fitting. But then, why did Cell even bother to absorb other humans to increase his power? There can be many reasons, but the simpler one is, why not? Even if he has a counter against the androids, it is still not 100% effective, and also, it only works if he is close to them, so making himself more powerful just increases even more his chances to absorb them, and also, he is more capable to fight other opponents, such as our heroes. Next, I'll rank both Android 16 and Piccolo after fusing with Cammy at a power level of 33. Maybe a bit of a controversial change, since Android 16 is way more powerful than the previously mentioned Piccolo in the original story. But look at it this way, both Android 16 and Piccolo are equal in raw power and also stronger than Imperfect Cell. By doing that, we avoid unnecessary power creeping and also give some respect to both characters. Is that really that bad of a thing? If you have any question about this change or think it could create some plot hole, just let me know in the comments. So, resuming with the story, immediately after reaching his new semi-perfect form, Cell tries to absorb 18, but Android 16 tries to stop him with a single punch, but naturally, this doesn't faze Cell and he responds with an energy blast directly to Android 16's head, damaging him severely. But out of nowhere, the Chad Tien appears above Cell and decides to stop the bio-android, even if it means his death. Now, I want to make, once again, a change with the story. It is somewhat relevant, but also not really, since it wouldn't change the rest of the story at all. If anything, it may improve it a bit. I want to give the technique of Kaioken to the three-eyed warrior. It may be too much of a change, but hear me out. Tien did train with King Kai for a while, and it is pretty apparent that he doesn't mind using dangerous abilities, even to the detriment of his own life. I mean, just look at what he did against Cell in the original story. In short, Tien is metal as hell and the Kaioken fits perfectly with him. Plus, with a maximum Kaioken, makes a lot more sense that the three-eyed warrior is able to momentarily stop Cell by just spamming Kiko hose. If you disagree with this change, that's totally fine and just ignore this change. So yeah, Cell is stopped by Tien after he uses the maximum Kaioken and starts spamming Kiko hose over the bio-android. Although he is not able to damage him in any significant way, the attack are still capable of holding off the powerful monster. Eventually, our Z-warrior can't keep up and falls from the sky, completely exhausted, but still, he accomplished his mission of not allowing Cell to reach his perfect form. The story continues as usual and eventually, Vegeta and Trunks finish their training and confront semi-perfect Cell. The prince assures Cell that he alone is able to handle him, since he is not just Vegeta, but Super Vegeta. The prince proceeds to use his new Super Saiyan form and fights Cell. After a while of fighting, Vegeta doesn't only prove his superior raw power over his enemy, but also his experience. After all, Cell is skilled at combat, but obviously is not nearly as experienced in real combat as Vegeta, so at the end, despite not having a huge difference of power, the battle seems a lot one-sided than it could have been in other conditions. Cell becomes extremely frustrated at not being able to reach perfection. If he did, he wouldn't just be way more powerful, but due to being perfect, his fighting skills would improve too. Of course, after hearing all the supposed wonders of becoming perfect, Vegeta makes the reasonable decision to let Cell absorb Android 18 and reach perfection, because why wouldn't he? Although, it was hard at first for Cell to absorb Android 18 due to Trunks, eventually, the bio-monster used a solar flare to temporarily blind the Saiyan and the others, allowing him to absorb 18 successfully. Finally, Cell reached his perfect form. Let's continue ranking the power of semi-perfect Cell, placing him at a level of 35.5. Not much to say about this Cell form. Next, we have Vegeta and Trunks' power level after finishing their training. Although, very likely that in the original story, their base and Super Saiyan form became a lot stronger after the 1 year inside the hyperbolic time chamber. I would like to make the small change of making their increase of power level from those forms very minimal and instead state that during the 1 year of training, they mostly increase their power by attaining a higher mastery over their transformation, allowing them to reach the second grade Super Saiyan, also known as Ascended Super Saiyan. To support this, I mostly base the change over some statements done by Goku and Vegeta, saying that to beat the androids, they need to reach a new transformation stronger than the Super Saiyan, implying that they have almost reached their limits in their base form. Otherwise, if they still had a big margin of improvement, they wouldn't have such an urgency to reach a new transformation, and instead, they would have just increased their power in base form, which in turn would increase their Super Saiyan form immensely. With that being said, I rank Vegeta forms similar to his previous level, but only a couple of decimals higher at most. Trunks' power also catch up to his father. When it comes to their Super Saiyan Grade 2, I place them both over 36.5. Finally, we have Tien power while using the Kaioken, reaching at maximum a level of 30. Naturally, you are free to ignore this change. Going back to the story, after reaching his perfect form, Cell continues his fight against Vegeta, but as expected, Cell, even while not using his full power, is overpowering Vegeta, and taunts him to use his most powerful attack against him, just to prove he is now the perfect warrior. The prince, with his pride hurt, prepares to launch a full-powered energy blast and challenges Cell to not dodge the attack. The bio-android, sure of himself, accepts. Vegeta without hesitation fires a highly powerful, final flash, and even perfect form Cell, upon receiving the attack directly, was badly damaged. Of course, Cell was just trolling Vegeta, and he regenerates his damaged body thanks to possessing Piccolo's DNA. Naturally, Vegeta power dropped a lot after using his most powerful attack and is promptly defeated by Cell, leaving the prince unconscious. The next challenger is the Sun's Prince, Trunks, who quickly powers up to an even stronger form, the Super Saiyan Grade 3, sometimes also called Ultra Super Saiyan. The fight goes the same as in the original story. Cell states that Trunks has more power than himself, but his decrease of speed due to the extreme sizes of his muscles render his transformation nearly useless in combat, and even go so far to show that even himself can use such a transformation. Already, Cell demonstrates that his perfect form didn't just increase his power, but also shaped him into a proper combat genius such as Goku or Vegeta. Trunks gives up after realizing he won't be able to beat Cell, but the perfect bio-android spares his life and announces a new tournament, the Cell Games. The result of this tourney will decide the future of the world. The story proceeds as usual. Goku and Gohan finish their 1 year training inside the hyperbolic time chamber, while Vegeta, Trunks, Piccolo, and even Tien train once again in the room, although they didn't grow in power by much. The time goes on, and finally, the day of the Cell Games arrives. All of our heroes gathers at the designated location. Goku is carrying everyone's hopes to beat Cell, and the fight that will decide the fate of everyone finally starts. Not before the savior of Earth, Mr. Satan, shows up and loses against Cell. The fight between Goku and Cell goes essentially the same as in the original story, not much to add here. The Saiyan shows the results of his training and uses his completely mastered form of the Super Saiyan, also known as the Grade 4 Super Saiyan. With this form, Goku reaches a new height of power and is able to compete somewhat evenly against Cell, and is even able to deal a huge amount of damage to Cell after using his teleportation technique in a very smart way. Still, the perfect bio-android has many abilities of his own and is also incredible skill at combat, so despite both warriors enjoying their fight, it eventually starts becoming clear that Cell is still holding back his full power. For the surprise of everyone present, Goku gives up and tells his own son, Gohan, to fight against perfect Cell. Despite everyone's concern about this decision, Goku is absolutely sure that his son is capable of winning, and consequently, Gohan accepts to fight. Gohan shocks everyone with his incredible power, being as strong, if not even slightly stronger than his own father, but that is not the only factor in a fight. Gohan himself is not as motivated to fight as his father, nor he has the experience, so despite being so powerful, he is not able to hold for long against perfect Cell. Eventually, the young Super Saiyan reveals that he knows why his father sent him to fight, the reason being that whenever he gets angry, his power level skyrockets, revealing his true, hidden potential. Cell is intrigued by this, and to force Gohan to release his true power, he creates the Cell Juniors and sent them to badly hurt Goku and the rest. These little demons are very powerful despite their size, and they are able to beat pretty easily the likes of Krillin and Yamcha. The only ones holding them off is a tired Goku, Vegeta, Trunks, and Piccolo. Gohan is looking disheartened as his father and friends are getting badly hurt by the juniors, but still, he is not able to lash out completely. Unexpectedly, by petition of Android 16, Mr. Satan throws the head of the android towards Gohan, and then, the good-hearted android encourages him to not hold off his power anymore and ask him to protect the animals and nature that he loved so much. Cell, after hearing this, crushes ruthlessly the head of 16, calling him a worthless piece of junk. Gohan, upon reaching Super Saiyan 2, starts ruthlessly destroying every Cell Jr. All the while, Cell is looking in terror the true power of the previously timid kid. After destroying every single Junior, Gohan redirects his anger once again towards Cell. The bio-android, in response, releases his true full power, but still, his strength is not at the same level. Gohan overpowers Cell in close combat. As that didn't work, the supposed perfect warrior decides to use a full-powered Kamehameha, but Gohan strikes back with his own, overpowering once again Cell, and this time, he is left badly damaged. At this very moment, Gohan is more of a Saiyan than a human, and starts showing a more sadistic aspect of himself, choosing to make Cell suffer more, instead of just defeating him for good. Cell has completely lost his cool and is beaten by Gohan once again, but this time, most likely due to the damage received, and probably losing control of his ki, the bio-warrior vomits Android 18. Consequently, Cell loses his perfect form, and now his defeat is assured. Due to having Frieza DNA, Cell becomes a sore loser and decides to blow up himself and the entire planet. Gohan's choice to not kill him earlier backfired immensely. But before Cell is able to destroy the entire planet, Goku sacrifices himself and teleports Cell to King Kai's planet. Gohan is feeling guilt and sad, thinking that he won't be able to make up for his mistake and avenge his father, but for better or worse, Cell comes back after regenerating from the explosion, and by using the newly learned teleportation technique, the bio-android arrives to Earth once again, being even more powerful than before, due to having a Saiyan Zenkai. Cell finishes off Trunks, and almost does the same to Vegeta, but Gohan is able to protect him, although, at the cost of his own arm. Super Perfect Cell prepares his final, full-powered Kamehameha with the intention to destroy the entire solar system and everyone on it. Gohan responds with his own attack, although highly afraid of destroying the planet. Both full-powered energy attacks, clashes, and a struggle between both warriors ensues. Cell is slowly overpowering Gohan's attack. Because of this, Goku communicates with his son from the afterlife, letting him know to not be afraid to use his full power and release his entire might to defeat Cell. Even though both opponents seems to be almost equal, Vegeta does a sneak attack on Cell, which doesn't hurt him at all, but it's enough to create a short distraction. In this moment, Gohan goes all out and finally overpowers Cell and obliterate him. The victorious is Gohan. Let's continue the ranking of power levels, starting with Goku, whose biggest improvement is completely mastering the Super Saiyan form. Considering the original story, there are a lot of discussion regarding the Super Saiyan 4th grade, or also known as Mastered Super Saiyan. Some people believe that Goku and Gohan were way stronger in their base forms than Vegeta and Trunks, explaining why they were more powerful without the need of using the Ascended Super Saiyan Grade 2, and essentially saying that the 4th grade form has the same increase of power as Grade 1. Others believe the 4th grade Super Saiyan have a higher multiplier than the previous grades. And I can see good arguments for both sides, but as we stated earlier in the video, the power of the Saiyans in their base forms are almost at their limits, so the argument of both Goku and Gohan being way stronger in their base form than the others doesn't really fit for our reworked power scaling. Now, if in the actual story this is the case or not is almost irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Personally, I prefer the argument that is possible to increase the power boost of the Super Saiyan form by mastering it and also training it, which is a concept that I touched briefly during the SAIYAN ARC video. It helps to explain the increase of power from the Super Saiyan Grade 1 to the mastered form without the need to raise up the base power. And also, when we finally get to Dragon Ball Super, this would also explain how the Super Saiyan 2 is able to be equal in power to the Super Saiyan 3. So before moving on, let's establish right away the differences of the Super Saiyan grades for our own power scaling. Grade 1, it's the vanilla transformation, and it increases the power of the user by an X amount. This form is taxing for the Saiyan body. Grade 2, also known as Ascended Super Saiyan, it specializes in increasing the output of power and speed in exchange of higher stamina and energy consumption. Grade 3, also known as Ultra Super Saiyan, it specializes in increasing raw power and strength to extreme levels at the cost of speed and agility. Grade 4, also known as Super Saiyan Mastered, is the fully controlled version of the transformation. It is way less taxing for the body and increases the boost of power even more than Grade 2 without any of the drawbacks. It is indisputably the strongest grade, although it requires much training and adjustment while using the Grade 1 Super Saiyan. Finally, I can rank Goku and Gohan in their Mastered Super Saiyan at level 39. In the other hand, Cell in his perfect form, while also suppressing his power, is over 39, but at full power, Cell reach a level of over 40, being the first character to belong in this tier. Trunks, in his Ultra Super Saiyan state, has a power level over 41, although, since it is a deeply flawed transformation, this level can be deceiving. The Cell Juniors, I would rank them around 37 and 36. And I would like to make a small change about these little cells, which would be that they specialize their power towards speed in exchange of much less durability. I rank Super Perfect Cell at a power level over 43. And finally, Gohan in his Super Saiyan 2 form has a power of 44, being still superior than Super Perfect Cell, but not by a huge margin. Also, we could even add that Gohan can become even stronger through rage boosts. After the victory of Gohan, the present timeline was finally saved from the androids, but as a bonus, I would like to rank some characters from the future timeline. Starting with Teenage Trunks, from the TV special, The History of Trunks, I would like to rank his base power over 27 and his Super Saiyan transformation a level over 30. Future Gohan have a base power of over 28 and in his Super Saiyan form a level of over 31. Future androids 17 and 18 have a power over 31 similar to Gohan. So yes, these androids are weaker than the present timeline counterparts, although not by much. And to explain this difference, we can use the previous explanation we used about how Dr. Gero was able to increase the power of his creations and just say that the androids from the future timeline went through much fewer training simulations, resulting in being weaker. The rest of the Z fighters from the future timeline that were exterminated by the androids should be weaker than the present timeline's fighters after training for 3 years in preparation for the androids. The last character left to rank is not other than Mr. Satan, with a power level of 5, weaker than Goku at the beginning of the story, but still decently stronger than normal human fighters. Well, we are finally done with the Cell Arc power scaling. This time, I did more changes than usual, such as not increasing the power of the base Saiyans by much, giving a boost to the Super Saiyan Grade 4 transformation, and even giving Tien the Kaioken. I think all of these changes will be much better for the overall power scaling in the long run, especially for Dragon Ball Super. I also didn't show the name for the 40 tier of power, but I will do it in the BUU's video arc. It will make more sense then. Welcome back. It is time to continue with the power rescaling for the BUU arc. Before I started working on this video, I thought it wasn't going to be too complicated, but then I realized it was a lot harder than I thought. While Dragon Ball Super is often criticized for its confusing power scaling, the BUU arc still proves to be very ambiguous. Just to provide some examples, on the screen, you'll notice several common questions I frequently encounter regarding power scaling in the BUU arc. For this video, I won't get too much into all of this since it could take too long and we won't get anywhere because there is no definitive clear answer to most of these questions. I'll just go for what I consider best in my opinion. Without further ado, let's start. 7 years after his epic battle against Cell, Gohan, now dedicating his time to studies, finds himself drawn back into the world of martial arts when he meets Videl, the daughter of the renowned Mr. Satan. Videl uncovers Gohan's secret identity as the great superhero, Saiyan, and demands that he teach her to fly. Reluctantly, Gohan agrees, and they develop a close friendship. Meanwhile, Gohan's younger brother, Goten, also joins the training sessions to learn how to control his ki. News of the upcoming martial arts world tournament spreads, and Goku, through King Kai's telepathic connection, informs his friends that he will return for a single day to participate. Excited by the prospect of reuniting with Goku and reliving their glory days, most of the Z fighters decide to enter the tournament. During training, Goten displays remarkable strength by transforming into a Super Saiyan, surprising Gohan and indicating his potential. As the tournament commences, the Z fighters gather, and Goku reunites with his family. Trunks and Goten reluctantly participate in the junior division, eager to prove themselves in the adult ranks. In the final round of the junior division, Trunks narrowly defeats Goten, leading to a show match where Trunks also emerges victorious against Mr. Satan. Unsatisfied with the lack of challenge, Goten and Trunks decide to enter the adult division disguised as Mighty Mask. As the tournament progresses, the Z fighters encounter Shin and Kibito, who reveal Shin's true identity as the Supreme Kai, shocking everyone. Piccolo withdraws from his match upon realizing Shin's identity. During the tournament, Videl faces Spopovich, who brutally beats her, enraging Gohan, and after losing, the half-Saiyan rushes Videl to the hospital and heals her with a Senzu Bean. Later, Gohan faces Kibito in the ring and agrees to transform into a Super Saiyan 2. However, the tournament is interrupted by Spopovich and Yamu, who assault Gohan and drain his energy before fleeing. While Kibito heals Gohan, Goku, Krillin, Piccolo, and Vegeta chase after Spopovich and Yamu, only to discover they are meeting with the dangerous magician, Babidi. Then, Supreme Kai explains Babidi's plan to revive Majin Buu. To stop the magician, the Z fighters must defeat his minions. They face numerous challenges, including Vegeta defeating Pui Pui and Goku overpowering Yakon by transforming very briefly into Super Saiyan 2. Back at the tournament, Mr. Satan proposes a battle royale, leading to Goten and Trunks revealing their identities and their disqualification after fighting with Android 18. Then, the android strikes a deal with Mr. Satan to let her win in exchange for a large sum of money. Goten and Trunks, now aware of the greater threat, fly off to join Goku and the others in their mission to stop the evil magician and save their friends. Let's delve into ranking some of the characters we've seen so far, starting with the newly introduced character, Videl. Before training with Gohan, Videl's strength should be slightly higher than her father, Mr. Satan, by a few decimals. After learning to harness her ki, her power level rises to 9, with the potential to reach tier 10 if she maintains consistent training. Next up are Spopovich and Yamu. Before being controlled by the evil magician, their power levels should be below 5, weaker than Mr. Satan. However, after being buffed with the Majin power, they jump to tier 10, reaching a level of 12 at most. This places them somewhat on par with Goku during the 21st World Tournament in terms of raw power, though still less skilled than the Kid Fighter. Moving on to the attendant of the Supreme Kai, Kibido, his power level remains ambiguous in the original story due to his inability to even move the Z sword. I personally rank him at a power level of 30, stronger than base Saiyans but weaker than a Super Saiyan. The situation surrounding the Z sword could be attributed to enchantments against the Kais. This remains speculative, but could explain why none of the Supreme Kais were able to pull out the sword, especially the South Supreme Kai, who we can assume should be stronger than a Super Saiyan. Regarding the Supreme Kai, Shin, he holds significant importance in the Dragon Ball cosmology and claims he could defeat Frieza easily. However, he's notably weaker than a Super Saiyan 2 and lacks experience as a Supreme Kai. I rank Shin with a power level of 38, slightly weaker than a mastered Super Saiyan, but still capable of besting Frieza at full power. Piccolo's power level during the BUU arc is somewhat debated, but I rank him around 38, on par with Shin. While Piccolo didn't engage in significant fights, his surrender to Shin during the tournament suggests that it could be due to respect because of the Kai's godly status, rather than just Shin being outright stronger than Piccolo, but again, in the story, the situation is ambiguous at best. Lastly, let's consider the half-Saiyan kids, Goten and Trunks. In their base forms, both kids are weaker than base Gohan, although not significantly so. However, when they transform into Super Saiyan, things become a bit more complicated due to their confrontation with Android 18. Personally, I rank them at tier 30 in their Super Saiyan forms, placing them slightly below an adult Super Saiyan like Namex Goku before he fully mastered the transformation. It's worth noting that the kids possess immense potential to enhance the power of their Super Saiyan form by mastering it completely, and they can do it much more naturally compared to their parents. Thus, while weaker than Android 18 at this point, their capacity for growth is considerable. Continuing with the story. On the spaceship, Gohan faces off against Dabura, the king of the demon realm. Initially, the half-Saiyan struggles, but after transforming into Super Saiyan 2, the fight becomes more evenly matched. Meanwhile, tension rises between Goku and Vegeta, resulting in the match being halted as Dabura senses the conflict. The Demon King informs to his master about the dark energy emanating from Vegeta, prompting the evil magician to partially control him, transforming Vegeta into a Majin. The warriors are transported back to the World Tournament arena, where Majin Vegeta wreaks havoc, challenging Goku to a fight. Their battle escalates, leading to both warriors transforming into Super Saiyan 2 and engaging in a brutal confrontation. Majin Vegeta reveals his desire to regain his pride, allowing himself to be controlled by the evil magician. While Goku and Majin Vegeta clash, Gohan and the Supreme Kai prepare to confront Dabura and his master. However, the energy required to unseal Majin Buu is reached due to the intense battle between Goku and Vegeta. Despite Gohan's attempt to stop the release of Majin Buu, the creature emerges with a childlike demeanor, concealing his immense power. After sensing the pink monster, Goku and Majin Vegeta agree to postpone their fight to deal with the new threat. Majin Buu displays incredible regenerative and magical abilities, overpowering Gohan, Supreme Kai, and even the Demon King. As Majin Vegeta faces Majin Buu, he realizes the necessity of protecting his loved ones and sacrifices himself in a failed attempt to destroy Buu. Goku awakens to the aftermath and learns of Gohan and Vegeta fates. But unknown to Goku, his son is saved by the Kais and transported to the Supreme Kai's planet to train and release the Z sword. As a last resort, Goku teaches Goten and Trunks the fusion dance technique learned during his time in the afterlife. Witnessing how the evil magician orders to terrorize Earth, Goku decides to briefly battle Majin Buu in his Super Saiyan 3 form before continuing the boy's training. After the evil sorcerer's demise at the hands of Buu, Goku's time on Earth expires, and he bids farewell to his loved ones before returning to the other world. Piccolo takes over training Goten and Trunks, who succeed in performing the fusion dance to become Gotenks, but are defeated by Majin Buu prematurely. In the other world, Goku observes as the old Kai performs a special ritual to unlock Gohan's latent potential. Back on Earth, Mr. Satan befriends Majin Buu, who adopts a puppy named B. Tragedy strikes when unforgivable evil demons shoot B, enraging Buu and leading him to expel his inner evil, resulting in the creation of the evil Buu. After the skinny BUU exterminate the morons that shooted the puppy, he confronts the good BUU, defeating him and proceeding to absorb him, which leads to the transformation of Super BUU. Let's dive back into ranking the characters' power levels. Goku, having dedicated years to training in the other world, has achieved Super Saiyan 2 and even a stage beyond that. While his transformations have exponentially increased his power, his base strength remains nearly unchanged, having reached his limits. Super Saiyan 2 Goku now surpasses Gohan's strength during the Cell arc by a slight margin, and in his Super Saiyan 3 form, Goku's power level exceeds 49. Prince Vegeta has also significantly enhanced his power since the Cell saga, although not to the same extent as Goku. Training alone on Earth, Vegeta has likely mastered the Super Saiyan form and possibly even ascended to the next level. After receiving the power boost from the Majin form, Vegeta's strength should equal Goku's, not factoring in Super Saiyan 3. Next, we have Gohan, who has largely stopped training, causing his power level to decrease compared to his teenage self. Due to his lack of practice, Gohan can't fully utilize his Super Saiyan 2 strength, fluctuating around a level of 42. Another contentious character is the Demon King, Dabura, whose power level is widely debated in the community. Most place him between the power of Cell in his perfect and super perfect forms. Personally, I rank the Demon King at 42.5, just below Cell's super perfect power. The other Majin minions, Pui Pui and Yakan, have power levels of over 26 and 29, respectively. Next, we have Majin Buu, whose power ranking is particularly challenging due to his various forms. Starting with the first version we see on screen, the one called Innocent Buu, whose power fluctuates significantly due to his childish and innocent demeanor. While theoretically, Innocent Buu could potentially rival Super Buu in strength, his power is limited due to the influence of the Grand Supreme Kai. In the story, Goku believed he could defeat this version of Buu by using his Super Saiyan 3 form, suggesting that Innocent Buu's standard power level is around 48, slightly weaker than Goku's final form. Regarding Evil Buu, due to his brief appearance and lack of explicit statements about his strength, it's challenging to determine his exact power level. However, it's clear that this skinny Buu is stronger than good Buu. Personally, I would rank him at around 47, slightly weaker than Innocent Buu, although his strength could potentially be higher. Finally, there's Good Buu, whose power level is likely the lowest among his different iterations. I would rank him around the strength of a Super Saiyan 2, slightly superior at a level of 45. Before we delve further into the story, let's address Gotenks, prior to his training in the hyperbolic time chamber. Although he hasn't been involved in any on-panel fights, it's stated that in his Super Saiyan form, Gotenks should be at least stronger than Goku in his Super Saiyan 3 form. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this, and it kinda breaks the power scaling we have so far. With that being said, I rank Gotenks in his current base form at a power level of 37, and in his Super Saiyan form at a level of 47. Additionally, it's important to clarify that Gotenks utilizes the mastered version of Super Saiyan, unlike the kids who haven't mastered it yet but clearly have the potential. This situation mirrors how after training in the time chamber, Gotenks can access higher stages of Super Saiyan without the individual kids being capable of doing so themselves. Fusion not only significantly increases the power of the users but also unlocks a substantial portion of their potential after the fusion process. Back to the story. Super Buu makes his menacing appearance at Kami's lookout, demanding the powerful fighter that Goku promised him, but not before wreaking havoc by wiping out Earth's entire population. Eventually, Piccolo leads Buu inside the hyperbolic time chamber, where Trunks and Goten have been diligently training, anticipating the arrival of this formidable foe. Upon Super Buu's arrival, the kids fuse into Gotenks. Initially, the young Saiyan fusion goofily engages in battle, resorting to ineffective attacks to prolong the fight. However, after getting serious and transforming into a Super Saiyan, Gotenks unleashes more potent techniques like the Galactic Donut and the Super Ghost Kamikaze attack. Despite dealing significant damage to Buu, he quickly regenerates from being blown to pieces. With a sense of desperation, Piccolo destroys the entrance of the hyperbolic time chamber in an attempt to trap Buu inside indefinitely. Enraged, Buu screams, tearing a hole in the dimensional barrier and returning to Earth. Gotenks and Piccolo are initially trapped, but of course, Gotenks had been holding back and just trolling the entire time. Finally, the kid unleashes his full power as a Super Saiyan 3 and creates a new dimensional hole, allowing both Piccolo and himself to escape. Outside, the battle between BUU and Gotenks intensifies, with the fusion gaining the upper hand. However, the strain of the Super Saiyan 3 form causes Gotenks to defuse prematurely. Without the fusion, Piccolo and the kids are left defenseless against BUU's might. Meanwhile, the ritual to unlock Gohan's potential concludes on the sacred world of the Kai, and he returns to Earth to confront the Pink Menace. The fight between the newly empowered Gohan and Super BUU ensues, with Gohan clearly demonstrating his superiority, overwhelming BUU and forcing him to adopt alternative tactics. In a bid to surpass Gohan's strength, Super BUU executes a plan to absorb Gotenks and Piccolo. Despite Gohan's valiant efforts, BUU gains not only the immense power of Gotenks but also the strategic insight of Piccolo. The battle seems one-sided until Tien intervenes to save his ally, although he is quickly defeated. As hope dwindles, the old Kai sacrifices his life energy to resurrect Goku and provides him with Patera earrings for fusion. Returning to Earth, Goku attempts to fuse with Gohan, but an unfortunate mishap occurs due to his eyesight problems, causing him to drop the earring. Despite the weakening of Super BUU as the Gotenks fusion dissipates, BUU surprises Gohan by absorbing him. The situation becomes even bleaker, prompting Goku to consider fusing with freaking Mr. Satan. Fortunately, Goku senses another power nearby, none other than Prince Vegeta, who was granted a one-day pass back to Earth, to aid in the battle against BUU. After explaining the dire circumstances to Vegeta, Goku persuades him to use the Patera earrings. The fusion results in the emergence of the formidable warrior, Vegeto, who promptly transforms into Super Vegeto. BUU confronts him, but even he is no match for the divine fusion. Even after being transformed into a candy, Super Vegeto continues to overpower BUU, humiliating him further. Vegeto cunningly baits BUU into absorbing him, but to prevent complete assimilation, the fused Saiyan deploys a barrier. We're left with just a few characters to rank, starting with Goten and Trunks post-training in the time chamber. Their base power saw a modest increase, but the real development lies in their mastery of the Super Saiyan form, reaching a formidable level of 38. When fused into Gotenks, their power skyrockets, with the addition of new transformations. In his Super Saiyan form, Gotenks nearly matches the strength of Goku's Super Saiyan 3. Moreover, his Super Saiyan 2 and 3 forms ascend to a whole new tier, boasting levels of over 50 and 52 respectively. As a side note, I'd tweak the original story slightly, to have Gotenks initially fight in his Super Saiyan 2 form against Super BUU, rather than just the standard Super Saiyan, to prevent minor power creeping. Shifting focus to Super BUU, I rank him at a level over 51, placing him slightly below Gotenks in his final form. After unlocking his potential, Gohan ascends beyond all previous fighters, reaching an impressive power level of 54. He emerges as the strongest warrior in Dragon Ball Z without factoring in fusions. Following the absorption of Gotenks, BUU's power jumps to 56, and post-Gohan absorption, he escalates further to a level of 58. Lastly, we have the ultimate warrior, Vegeto, to rank. In the manga, he skipped fighting BUU in his base form, immediately transforming into Super Vegeto. However, in the anime, he overwhelms the Pink Menace even in his base form. Considering the manga version, it's speculative to gauge the true strength of base Vegeto. Personally, I rank him at a level of 58. And as Super Vegeto, he reaches an unprecedented tier with a staggering power of 64. I will reveal the classifications of the last two tiers at the end of the video, so I can properly explain them. As the fusion within BUU's body dissipates, Goku and Vegeta quickly rescue their absorbed friends. With each absorbed entity shed, BUU spirals into a chaotic breakdown, reverting to his original form, a pure, untamed Kid BUU. Observing this transformation, Goku and Vegeta grow somewhat confident, recognizing the significant decrease in BUU's power post-absorption losses. However, their newfound confidence is shattered when Kid BUU unleashes immediate devastation, annihilating Earth and nearly eradicating all life, leaving only a handful, including Goku, to escape to the sacred realm of the Kais. Facing this dire threat alone, Goku ascends to Super Saiyan 3, initiating the final showdown. Initially, Goku's raw power grants him an edge, but Kid Buu's unpredictable abilities and the draining effects of Super Saiyan 3 begin to take their toll. In a bid to buy Goku time to recuperate, Vegeta steps into the fray, later joined by Good Buu. Despite their efforts, Goku struggles to regain his strength in time. With their backs against the wall, they pivot to a new strategy, the Spirit Bomb. With aid from Vegeta, Good Buu, and even the savior of Earth, Mr. Satan, Goku summons the Super Spirit Bomb. In a climactic struggle, Goku harnesses the power of Super Saiyan alongside the Spirit Bomb, expressing hope for Buu's redemption even as he launches the devastating attack. With a final surge of power, Goku overwhelms Kid Buu, ultimately obliterating him with the formidable Spirit Bomb. Finally, the threat of Majin Buu is over, and the Earth will be forever in peace, marking the end of Dragon Ball as a whole. We're only down to the final characters to evaluate. First, let's consider the fusion of Kibito Kai. While he was initially overhyped, thinking he could take on Super Buu, it's clear he's not that strong. Nevertheless, his power increase is substantial. I rank him slightly below a Super Saiyan 2, with a power level around 42. Then, there's the South Supreme Kai absorbed by Buu long ago. Although the specifics of his clash with Kid Buu remain unclear, we can speculate his strength to be around that of a Super Saiyan 3. Consequently, I rank him at 49. Lastly, we have the fan named the Huge Buu, or sometimes also called Ultra Buu. This variant of the Pink Menace possesses the full power of the South Supreme Kai and is briefly mentioned in the manga as stronger than Super Buu. However, the extent of his superiority remains uncertain. Therefore, I rank him at 53. Finally, there's the infamous Kid Buu, the purest form without any absorptions. While weaker than Super Buu, he's exceedingly dangerous due to his proclivity for destruction. I place him at a power level similar to Innocent Buu, around 48. So, we've wrapped up our Dragon Ball Z power rescaling series, and it's been both fun and challenging. You might have noticed that for the BUU arc, I didn't make many changes compared to previous arcs, except for one significant adjustment, which I'll reveal shortly. But before we get to that, I'd like you to consider something. Take a look at the characters in Tier 50, you can notice that most of them share a common trait. Have you figured it out? Feel free to pause the video if you need more time to ponder. Let me start explaining. Currently, we have 4 characters in Tier 50, Gotenks, Super Buu, Gohan, and Vegito. What sets them apart, with the exception of Gotenks, is their close connection to godly beings, perhaps even to the concept of godly ki, which will be fully introduced in the future, during Dragon Ball Super. Let me keep cooking. Super Buu's strength surpasses that of Kid Buu because he absorbed the South Supreme Kai, who, as you may recall, possesses godly ki much like Shin and other Supreme Kais. Then we have Gohan. While it might not be immediately obvious, just consider who unlocked his potential, the Elder Kai, who naturally wields godly ki. While the concept of divine ki wasn't most likely even properly thought about during the time the BUU arc released, we could make the change in the story, that the Elder Kai's ritual is imbuing the recipient with a partial infusion of godly ki, enhancing the normal ki of the mortal with the divine energy. Although, this only works if the recipient of the ritual currently have the actual potential to become that strong, and Gohan, of course, possessed that potential. As for Vegito, it's even more straightforward. By using the Patera earrings, which are inherently divine and exclusive to Supreme Kais, the fusion receives a significant power boost. We could speculate that the reason of that immense power boost is that the Patera fusion also partially gives godly ki to the result mortal fusion, in this case, to Vegito. However, if these mortals already can fully wield godly ki, then the Potara's enhancement would be even greater. Gotenks is the only odd one out, but maybe whoever developed the Metamorian fusion technique was trying to imitate the properties of a Patera fusion, but obviously this is complete speculation. Anyway, Gotenks is a special case, since he is the result of 2 fighters with huge potential that are merging together. So with all of that in mind, my reason for the partial introduction of God Ki before Dragon Ball Super is to already have precedence regarding godly ki in the story, and it's a necessary step to avoid the huge power creeping in future arcs. Although, I want to let you know that before we continue with Dragon Ball Super, I most likely will make a video where I explain what changes to the God Key concept could greatly fix many power scaling problems we will see in Dragon Ball Super, although, I'm not sure yet. With that being said, let's classify Tier 40 first. In this power tier, we find characters such as Perfect Cell, Kid Buu, Innocent Buu, Super Saiyan in their forms beyond the standard form, the Demon King Dabura, and others of similar caliber. Upon closer examination of these fighters, it becomes evident that they share a common trait: they are all exceptionally powerful anomalies in the world of Dragon Ball. For instance, Perfect Cell is a being created through artificial means, with DNA extracted from various formidable individuals. Additionally, he absorbed 2 incredibly potent androids, further enhancing his already formidable power. It's safe to say that Cell is far from being a typical mortal. The Super Saiyan 2 transformation is regarded by Goku and his allies as transcending their conventional limits, to the point where even divine beings like the Supreme Kai find it unfathomable that a mortal could achieve such power. Meanwhile, Super Saiyan 3 appears to be a form accessible only under extraordinary circumstances. Majin Buu, on the other hand, is a primordial entity that has existed since time immemorial. More akin to a force of nature than a mere mortal, Buu embodies destruction in its purest form, proving to be a virtually unstoppable force even for the Supreme Kais. Both Dabura and the Supreme Kais hail from realms beyond the mortal plane, further showing their exceptional status. Taking all of this into account, I classify Tier 40 as universal mortal freaks. In essence, the characters occupying this power tier are aberrations of nature, wielding power that defies the conventional limits of mere mortals. If anyone comes up with a better name for this tier, let me know, since I'm not convinced with the one I have. Tier 50 represents the threshold between the mortal realm and the divine realm of power. As previously discussed, characters in this tier either harness some form of divine power in combination with their regular ki, elevating them to extraordinary levels of strength, or they exist under unique circumstances such as a fusion. I classify this tier the following. The Nai Divine User Tier, signifying their close status to true divine power. If you have a better name, let me know. We only have Tier 60, and so far, only Super Vegito belongs here, but I want to skip on this one for the next video, although I am sure you have a good idea of what this tier is about. Welcome to my channel. On this occasion, we're delving into the power levels of the most relevant characters from all the Dragon Ball Z movies. First and foremost, it's essential to clarify that power scaling in the movies is highly inconsistent. Often, determining how the main villains from the movies compares to the canonical enemies boils down to personal opinion. I will try to rank the power levels of the characters according to what we see on the movie and also to what makes sense in their respective placement in the timeline of the original story. Hence, it's likely that we may have differing views on where certain characters belong in the power scaling. Naturally, I'll explain my reasoning, and I welcome your input if you disagree or wish to suggest power levels for specific characters. Furthermore, I'll avoid delving too deeply into each movie's plot to prevent the video from becoming overly lengthy. Without further ado, let's begin with the first Dragon Ball Z movie. Dead Zone. In this movie, the main villain is Garlic Jr., accompanied by his 3 lackeys. The plot boils down to Garlic Jr. kidnapping Gohan and wishing for immortality. As this movie is situated just before the Raditz saga, I'll assign power levels similar to what the canon characters had at that time. So as we stated in the SAIYAN ARC power levels video, Goku and Piccolo at this time had a level around 21. Same with Kami-sama, although he is weaker than both previous fighters by a few decimals, and also his overall stamina is even lesser in comparison to them since he is really old. Gohan doesn't directly fight, but after being enraged and elevating his power, he seals Garlic Jr. I give a level over 21 to Gohan. Before ranking the main bad guy, I gotta go through his henchmen. Sancho, Ginger, and Nikki. They are relatively strong for OG Dragon Ball standards, but they are still considerable weaker than the top-tier fighters at the time, which are Goku and Piccolo, and to some extent, Kami-sama. After all, Goku was able to dispose two of them in their transformed form, without even needing to take out his weighted clothing. I rank each of them in their base form at a power level of 18 and in their super form at 19. Now we move on to Garlic Jr., who in his base form was able to defeat Kami-sama easily, but if I could make a change, I would make Kami-sama give a much better fight at the start, and after a while, due to his stamina problems, he starts losing the battle. Garlic Jr.'s biggest strength is his immortality, so he is the worst kind of opponent Kami-sama could have. In his super form, the evil Garlic Jr. seems to be at least at the level of Goku and Piccolo without their weighted clothes. Considering all of that, I rank his base and super form at a power level of 20 and 21, respectively. The next movie is titled The World's Strongest, and its placement in the story should be between the SAIYAN and the Namek arc. In short, the story of this movie is about Dr. Willow, who is trying to steal the body of the strongest fighter in the world for himself, aka Goku. Let's go very briefly through the canon characters, whose strength is around what they had by the end of the SAIYAN arc. Krillin and Gohan have a power around 20. Gohan Enraged and Piccolo are around 22, with the Namekian being stronger by a few decimals. And Goku is the strongest one, with a level of 23.5 in his base form, and while using his limited and maximum Kaioken, he has a level of 24 and 25.5, respectively. The henchmen of the main villain are the Biomen and also the stronger Bio Warriors. Each Biomen have a level over 10, they were defeated by Mr. Rashi, so it shouldn't be too much higher than that. Each Bio Warrior are really strong, and also each of them possess a really strong gimmicky ability, and with it, they even forced Goku to use his Kaioken. I put them over 22 of power. Finally, we have Dr. Willow, who was able to overpower Goku with a Kaioken times 3, but a 4 times Kaioken seemed to be stronger than the Doctor. Although, it was stated that his power was raising even more after that. So, overall, I give the Doctor a level over 25. Next movie is The Tree of Might. This story should be placed before the fight of Goku against Frieza, maybe around the Jinyu battle. The movie's plot comes down to Turles and his soldiers invading Earth. The power levels for the canon characters such as Piccolo and such are not exactly the same as during the FRIEZA arc. After applying our power scaling, it should be around the following. Yamcha and Krillin have a level of 21, with the Baldy being slightly stronger by a few decimals. Next is Tien, with a level of 22, followed by Gohan and Piccolo, with a power over 23 and 24 respectively. Finally we have Goku with a level of 25, up to 27 with the max Kaioken. There is also Gohan in his Ozaru form, who should have a power over 28, but this is only raw strength. In practice, his combat capabilities are inferior. Next, we have the henchmen of Turles. Starting with the twins, Razin and the other one. I rank them with a level of 21 each, but they make up the lower level by fighting in tandem with great coordination. The rest of the soldiers, like Kakao and Amand, have a power level over 23. Turles have a base power over 25, and after eating the fruit, his level increases to 28. Next movie is Lord Slug, and its main villain is surprisingly Lord Slug. There is not a clear time when this movie took place, but it should have been before Goku transformed into a Super Saiyan for the first time. The plot of the movie is essentially the same as the last one, but this time, the main villain is a Namekian. Gohan, Piccolo, and Goku have a power level of 25, 27, and 28.5, respectively. Goku with Max Kaioken have a power level of 30.5. And on its pseudo-Super Saiyan, also called Fake Super Saiyan, we can only assume that it's weaker than the true form. I rank Goku with the Fake Super Saiyan at 30. To defeat Mr. Slug, Goku apparently used a Kaioken times 100, but it was only possible thanks to receiving a temporal energy boost from Piccolo. In our scaling, there can't be a Kaioken like that, but we could state that it was a maximum Kaioken, enhanced even more thanks to Piccolo's energy. I would rank Goku with this temporal buff, slightly over 31.5 of power, but of course, this boost only lasts for a single powerful strike. Next, we have the henchmen of Lord Slug, who should have a power between Gohan and Piccolo around 25 and 26. Finally, we have Lord Slug himself. In his old state, I place him weaker than base Goku by a few decimals at 28. After regaining his youth, he has a power level of 30, and in his giant form, his level is over 31. Moving on, the movie called Cooler Revenge should be placed between the android's arrival and the Frieza fight in Namek. And the plot is about the brother of Frieza, Cooler, wanting to kill the Super Saiyan, Goku. The canon characters' power levels are the following. Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo have a level of 25, 27, and 28 respectively. Goku in his base form have a power of 28.5 and in his Max Kaioken a level of 30.5. And in his Super Saiyan form a level of 31.5. The Cooler Force soldiers have a strength of 26 and the strongest of them, Salsa, a power of 27. Now, Cooler in his fourth form have a level of 30.5 and in his final form a power of 31.5. I know that in the movie he is supposed to be stronger than Frieza, but as I said before, movies are very unreliable and half the time don't make sense. If anything, I would say that final form's Cooler is stronger than 100% Frieza because he doesn't have stamina nor energy consumption problems like his brother. Also, Cooler not being able to even harm Goku in his Super Saiyan form doesn't make any sense to me unless this Goku is way more powerful than the canon version, but I would like to keep their levels similar to the original story to not make everything confusing. So, with this version of power scaling, Goku fight against Cooler final form was much more even and only won barely after a long struggle during the final clash. Next movie is The Return of Cooler. The plot is, well, Cooler returning, but this time all shiny and hard. To me, this movie should be taking place at least around the Android saga. The power level of the canon characters are the following. Goku, Vegeta in their base forms have a level of over 28.5 and in their Super Saiyan form a level of over 31.5. Piccolo level is of 30.5. Metacooler and the Metacooler Core have a power level of 32. Following, we have the Super Android 13 movie, which should be placed before the Saiyans trained inside the hyperbolic time chamber to fight Cell. The plot of this movie is about the androids trying to kill Goku. The canon characters, Goku, Trunks, and Vegeta, have a power level of over 28 in their base form and over 31 in their Super Saiyan state, while Piccolo have a level of 30.5. To defeat Super Android 13, Goku absorbed the Spirit Bomb, increasing his power a lot more temporarily. I would give this powered-up Goku a level of 40. The villains from this movie, Android 14 and 15, have a power of 30. And Android 13 in his base and super form have a level of over 31 and 35, respectively. Next movie is Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan, and the story should be placed right before the Cell games. The plot comes down to Paragus plotting against Vegeta and the others, and Broly fighting and destroying everything. The canon characters have the following power levels. Vegeta and Trunks have a power of 36 in their Super Saiyan Ascended form. Goku and Gohan in their Super Saiyan Mastered form have a level of 39. Piccolo's power is of 36. The antagonist, Paragus, have a power of 23. And finally, we have the OG Broly, and oh boy, this one was a hard one to rank. Broly have a lot of fans, and plenty of them think of him as one of, if not the strongest villain in Dragon Ball Z, but there are others that underestimate Broly's power too. Personally, I don't particularly hate nor love OG Broly, I am mostly neutral towards him, so I'll just rank him according to how I perceived him while watching the movie. If you rank him with a different power level, that's totally fine. So, base Broly while being restricted has a power of 20. In his restricted Super Saiyan form, I rank him at a level of over 35, although it varies depending of how restricted is his power. And in his legendary Super Saiyan form, I give Broly a power of 44. I would give him even more, but he still got defeated by Goku after receiving a temporal energy boost from his allies, and I find hard to believe he became much stronger than a Super Saiyan 2 with this increase of power, but there is nothing concrete either way. Next movie is BoJack Unbound, which is placed after Cell defeat and before the time skip. The plot is about space pirates trying to conquer Earth. Starting with Trunks and Vegeta, they have a power level of over 36 in their ascended Super Saiyan form. Piccolo have a level of 36. And Gohan have a power of 39 and 44 in his Super Saiyan Mastered form and Super Saiyan 2 form, respectively. The henchmen of BoJack have a power of 34 and in the case of Kogu have a level of 35 in his super form. The leader of the space pirates, BoJack, have a power of 38 and in his super form, a level of 40, perhaps higher if you feel like it. Next movie is Broly, The Second Coming. This movie is placed after the time skip, just before the 25th World Tournament. The plot is just Broly coming again. Let's rank the power of the canon characters. The Saiyan kids have a level of 27 and 30 in their base and Super Saiyan form, respectively. I rank Gohan with nearly the same power he had during the 25th World Tournament, in other words, weaker than how he was during the Cell fight. I know that in the movie, Gohan said he was stronger than last time he fought Broly, but at the time, he didn't know how to transform into Super Saiyan 2, and in this movie, we will state that he is capable of doing so, technically, making him stronger than last time he fought the legendary Super Saiyan. So Gohan in his Super Saiyan 1 and 2 have a power level of 38 and 43, respectively. There is also Goku appearing briefly to help his sons during the last moments against Broly. It is ambiguous if he was physically there or not, but to avoid any confusion, we will state that yes, he was there, momentarily helping against Broly. Goku have a power of 39 in his Super Saiyan form, and we will also say that Goku used his Super Saiyan 2 very briefly to defeat Broly alongside his sons. We only have Broly left to rank, and for this movie, he has increased his power, but we will state that it wasn't because of a Zenkai, but only because he now can use his full power properly, thanks to after so many years, not being restricted by his father's device to control him. So, Broly in his base form has a level of 28, in his Super Saiyan form, a power of 38, and as a legendary Super Saiyan, full power, have a level of 48. Of course, this is just what I think it's a proper power for Broly, taking in consideration everything we said before. After all, with our changes, he was defeated by 2 Super Saiyans 2, plus a normal Super Saiyan, and only because Broly was momentarily distracted by Trunks. Next, we have a very beloved movie. Fusion Reborn, which is placed during the confrontation against BUU. The plot is about a monster that was born from evil energies and whose very existence was threatening the other world. Goku and Vegeta power level in their Super Saiyan 2 form is 44. Goku in his Super Saiyan 3 form have a power of 49. Janemba in his base form have a level of over 47 and in his super form a power of over 51.5. And finally, we have Gogeta, another fan-favorite character that creates a lot of discussions in the community, with fans comparing him to Vegito in terms of power. People either believe that Gogeta is weaker or stronger than the Potara fusion, and personally I agree that he is weaker, at least, in Dragon Ball Z. So, as we stated during the BUU ARC power levels video, since Vegito is using a divine method to fusion, the power boost is higher than the Metamorian technique. This is because the Potara earrings adds partial divine energy to the resulting fusion even if the users don't know how to use it, while the Metamorian technique does not. But if both users know how to use divine ki, then the boost increase for both methods of fusion is much higher than normal, making both fusion methods equal. So, Gogeta in Dragon Ball Super is as strong as Vegito, at least that's how we are going to scale them. Back to the main topic. Gogeta as a Super Saiyan during this movie have a power of 58. The final movie of Dragon Ball Z is The Wrath of the Dragon, placed not too long after the defeat of BUU. The power level of the canon characters are the following. Vegeta while using Super Saiyan 2 have a power level of 44. Gotenks in his Super Saiyan 3 form have a power of 52.5. Gohan with his unlocked potential have a level of 54. And Goku, in his Super Saiyan 3 form, have a power of over 49, but the power level of his Dragon Fist is around 55. And yeah, it is possible that in the movies, Goku is stronger than Gohan, but to me, makes much more sense that the Dragon Fist is just one of those very powerful one-time attacks. Also, Goku was able to defeat Hirudegarn by finding out his weakness, which apparently was that whenever the monster felt strong emotions, his energy starting to drain or something. Anyways, trying to make sense of Toei's power scaling will let us nowhere, so let's just go with what we have. The big monster of this movie, Hirudegarn, have a power of 51 in his base state, and after transforming, he has a level of 55. As an extra, I want to go through some others' original videos animation from Dragon Ball Z. Starting with the one called Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans. This one is placed just before the Cell game starts in the story, so our heroes have the same power during the Cell arc. The final antagonist of this OVA is Hachiyak, who was stated to be possibly stronger than Broly, and showed very similar feats than him, although Hachiyak have an actual weakness. I rank him at a power level of 45, and as a bonus, I give to his super form a power level of 49. Next OVA is The Return of Son Goku and Friends. This is placed 2 years after the defeat of BUU. The only Z fighters that participated in combat in this OVA were the Saiyan kids. In their base form they have a level over 27, similar to their power during the BUU arc. Gotenks in his base form have a power over 37. The antagonists of this OVA, Avu and Kado, have a power level of 27, similar to Frieza in his first form. And after fusing, they have a power of over 31. There is also the brother of Vegeta, and I rank him with a power of 22. And lastly, we have the Super Saiyan, Bardock OVA. The father of Goku, Bardock, have a power level of 27 during his fight against Chilled. And in his Super Saiyan form, a level of 30. Chilled have a power of 28. We are finally... Welcome to my channel. In this occasion we will explore and expand upon the world building of Dragon Ball, specifically the godly ki concept, which serves almost as a prerequisite to understand the future videos I will be making of power scaling regarding Dragon Ball Super and GT to a lesser extent. The reason is because I am going to be referring to godly ki very often, and it will be our saving grace to fix many power scaling problems in the future, so to avoid explaining these changes every time, I figure that was better just to make a video specifically about this topic. But before we start, let's go through the definition of godly ki and its properties in the actual canon. Godly ki, which means spirit of a god, is a special type of ki used by divine beings. This energy is far superior to regular ki, however, a normal ki user can still outmatch a god ki user. This type of ki can't be sensed by not divine beings, but they still feel a tremendous pressure, and also the power boost by obtaining god ki is huge, but also incredibly difficult to use without proper training. It is stated by Goku that after acquiring God Ki, his Saiyan Ki had a different quality to it, even in base state, and finally, it is noted by Vegeta that the secret to obtaining God Ki was to power up while keeping his vital energy within his body, preventing it from leaking out into an aura. In summary, that's our current understanding of God Ki. Unfortunately, this concept have been really underutilized in the story so far. It has so much potential of freshing out the power system of Dragon Ball, and also, it's the perfect way to fix many problems with the power scaling, but it really feels like a wasted opportunity, which is why I decided to explore and expand the lore of God Ki. So, let's delve deeper into how I've extended and developed the concept of Godly Ki. Godly Ki represents the life force utilized by divine beings, surpassing regular Ki from mortals in potency and quality. While mortals can learn to harness it, being able to master it is another matter, since it is exceptionally challenging, if not downright impossible to control under normal circumstances. Godly Ki exists in two states, authentic and partially. Authentic Godly Ki fully replaces a user's regular Ki, making them true divine beings. Mortals cannot sense these users, but instead perceive their presence through a characteristic pressure. Apart from providing a substantial power-up, what distinguishes Godly Ki from regular Ki lies in its creation process. Regular Ki is the raw life force inherent in all beings, whereas godly Ki emerges after refining this life force to perfection through a specific and rigorous method. The process begins with the mortal focusing their entire regular Ki inwards instead of expelling it. This consolidated energy must then be meticulously controlled and evenly distributed throughout the entire body, including every cell, without any disruptions. Successfully completing this process converts all regular Ki into pure godly Ki. However, maintaining control over this potent energy is even more challenging, as any instability risks dissipating the godly Ki, and it even endangers the user's life if they suddenly lose all of their Ki. Achieving prolonged control over godly Ki enables users to train while utilizing this energy, gradually increasing the maximum amount of godly Ki they can generate, leading to increase of their power level and potential new transformations and abilities. To sum up, the necessary steps to master godly Ki are the following. Number 1. The user needs to focus their full power of regular Ki inside their bodies and with perfect control, distribute it to every inch of their body. Number 2. The resulting divine Ki generated needs to be under complete control constantly. If the user loses control, then the divine Ki is dissipated with possible dangerous consequences to the user. Number 3. After being capable of controlling godly Ki and using it externally, the user can begin training while wielding divine energy to increase their power. The harder the training is, the better results the user have if they are successful. This method stands as the most difficult, but also the only method that allows any mortal to potentially achieve divinity. However, there exist beings capable of harnessing godly Ki through alternative means. Typically, the Shinjin race, also known as the core people, possess a natural affinity for godly Ki to varying degrees. Among them, certain individuals, such as the Supreme Kais, naturally generate fully godly Ki instead of regular Ki. Yet, the Shinjin race aren't the sole beings inherently capable of generating godly Ki. Some mortal races and select individuals may also manifest this ability under unique circumstances. These circumstances might include being genetic descendants of legendary godly Ki users or being created for the explicit purpose of wielding immense power and being genetically superior. One speculative example could be Broly from Dragon Ball Super, although I will get more into this in a future video. Alternatively, individuals may acquire at least partial godly Ki through specialized methods devised by divine beings or mortals with access to godly Ki. Examples of such methods are plenty, including the Patera earrings, the Super Saiyan God ritual, the Elder Kai's ritual, making a wish to Shenlong to access to God Ki, and even the Kaioken. The latter technique I will explain it more in the Dragon Ball GT power scaling video. Also, in some instances, certain mortal races have developed a biological capacity to generate a low amount of semi-divine Ki, which allows them to increase their power when needed, usually activated by emotional triggers such as anger. As discussed earlier, there are two distinct states of the God Ki, one of which is the partial godly vital energy, which from now on, we will refer to it as semi-divine Ki. This state of vital energy entails the augmentation of regular Ki with a relatively small amount of divine energy. This state serves as a bridge between mortals and gods. Regular Ki infused with a certain amount of godly Ki still remains detectable for normal Ki users, and correspondingly, the increase in power is minor in comparison to fully using divine energy. The self-awareness of actually using a lesser form of godly Ki varies among users, depending on how they unlock the use of semi-divine Ki. For instance, individuals like BUU after absorbing the Supreme Kais or Gohan after the Elder Kai's ritual likely had no idea of the presence of godly Ki in their respective forms, since they relied on external sources to attain this power. The Kaioken technique, created by King Kai, operates on principles akin to godly Ki, explaining how Goku can employ the Kaioken in conjunction with a Super Saiyan God form. In other cases, users may have a limited knowledge of godly Ki, limiting them to the semi-divine state. Such is the case with Goku from the GT timeline, a topic that will be further explored in the next video addressing Dragon Ball GT power scaling. Learning to wield semi-divine Ki is considerably more feasible for mortals to accomplish independently. To do so, the user must practice the same method as learning full godly ki, but instead, the user needs to exert only a portion of their energy to focus and control. While this method doesn't give as significant a power increase as the true version, it poses far less risk to the user's life. Additionally, those who can harness full godly ki can also use semi-divine ki. This serves as a method to incrementally boost their divine energies in a controlled way, reducing the chances of negative effects from mishandling pure godly ki. Naturally, this entails a slower pace of power increase. Examples of individuals employing semi-divine ki in this manner include Goku and Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super, particularly when they using their Saiyan Beyond God state. To clarify the distinction between the various states of ki, let's consider a simple analogy. Picture 3 glasses of water. The first glass is contaminated with numerous bacteria, chemicals, and possibly even dirt. The next glass still holds these impurities but to a lesser extent, depending on the degree of purification. While the third glass of water has been entirely purified, devoid of any contaminants. In this analogy, the glass symbolizes the body of the ki user, while the water within represents their ki, and its purity reflects the divine nature of their vital force. Much like how the second glass of water gradually approaches the purity of the third glass as it becomes more refined, the higher degree of divinity within the user's ki brings it closer to the possession of full godly energy, often meaning a corresponding increase in power. In summary, mastering godly ki is incredibly hard, making those like Vegeta who achieve it by training truly remarkable. This difficulty also explains why so few mortals can use it and why guidance from beings like angels is often necessary. Introducing God Ki and semi-divine ki provides a valuable tool for fixing inconsistencies in power scaling across Dragon Ball Super, GT, and possibly even Dragon Ball Heroes. Future videos will explore how individual characters use godly ki in greater detail, so be sure that it will be very present. I hope you found this video interesting and I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the subject. Personally, I enjoy expanding upon different world-building elements in stories I love, such as Dragon Ball and others, so I'm really passionate about this. Welcome to my video, hopefully you're having a great day. In this occasion we are going to go through the entirety of Dragon Ball GT, but before starting, remember to check out past videos of this series, in case you're not understanding something. Also remember to subscribe if you are enjoying the content, I really appreciate. Without further ado, let's start. After the Z Fighters' victory over Majin Buu, timelines diverged between Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball GT. In GT's timeline, Goku never encountered Beerus, thus never underwent the ritual to become a Super Saiyan God, and he didn't receive formal training in godly ki from Whis. Instead, Goku focused on regular training, but eventually he realized his body had reached its limits. Rather than feeling discouraged, he searched for new avenues for power. Enhancing the flaws of Super Saiyan 3 proved impossible due to its inherent limitations, and strengthening Super Saiyan 2 won't do any good, since it would still be inferior to Super Saiyan 3. After much pondering, Goku realizes that the only way to get stronger is by learning more about the source of power of the only two fighters that were stronger than him, Super BUU and Gohan. By looking for answers, he tries to go to Kibito Shin and Elder Kai, but first, he goes to King Kai for help to reach the Supreme Kais. There, King Kai reveals to Goku that the Supreme Kais have a different type of life energy, the godly ki. He also says that himself possesses semi-divine ki, and he developed the Kaioken technique as a way to emulate the process to generate true godly ki, but it was too dangerous for him and also to any other mortal to even try to master divine energy. After reaching the Supreme Kai's planet, Elder Kai and Kibito Shin provide very useful information to Goku, telling him to learn a partial version of Divine Ki instead, since Godly Ki is forbidden to learn for mortals since it's too dangerous for them and the universe as a whole. Besides, Semi-Divine Ki is much more doable for a mortal to learn without dying in the process. For over 5 years before the 28th World Tournament, Goku trained consistently and very hard to learn how to use Godly Ki, and even though he failed to use the true form of Godly Ki, he still was able to harness a partial version of it, being able to use it to enhance his base form power so far. After increasing his power, Goku decides to relax for a while and wait for the next world tournament, where UB is going to participate. From now on, the story goes on the same as in the final timeskip of Dragon Ball Z, with Goku fighting UB in the tournament and consequently deciding to train him for years to come. With the changes we did related to the semi-divine ki concept, we can explain properly the huge increase of power from Goku and also properly introduce the concept of godly ki to Dragon Ball GT by making Goku learn on his own how to use the equivalent state of Saiyan beyond God used by him and Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super Timeline. Personally, I prefer changing that name to the demigod state since it's more in line with what we have been doing so far. Now we can properly rank both GT versions of Goku and UB during the end of Z. After training for years and learning how to use semi-divine ki to enhance his regular power, Goku has a power of 55 while using the demigod base state. Naturally, Goku can still just use his regular ki, but his normal power hasn't shown any major increase since the BUU ARC, only improving a few decimals. Next we have the child UB, whose power greatly varies since he doesn't have proper control over it. At minimum, while being scared to fight, I put him around 20 and 29. While fighting seriously and sure of himself, his power level can go as high as 48, similar to pure BUU's power. Goku and his new disciple train together until the start of Dragon Ball GT. During this time, Goku masters enhancing his regular ki by using semi-divine energy, while using his Super Saiyan forms, a feat he couldn't achieve before. The first arc of Dragon Ball GT, the Black Star Dragon Ball Saga, follows Goku, Pan, and Trunks on a universe-spanning adventure to find the Black Star Dragon Balls and prevent Earth's destruction. This arc is so forgettable for me that I don't even feel like rating the very few notable fighters from this arc, the only ones being Logic and Lud. If you want, feel free to comment on what power level you would give to them. Next is the Baby arc, where power scaling becomes much more interesting. The initial segment of the storyline involves a conflict against machine mutants created by the Tuffle race. The first formidable machines Goku encounters during this arc are the Sigma Force, comprising 4 members. The weakest member is Nat, who was defeated by Pan, while the strongest is their commander, Nizi. Goku engages in battle against 3 of them simultaneously, including the commander, and he still manages to defeat them relatively easily, in just his base form, even after the machines merge together. The subsequent opponent was Rildo, General of Dr. Mu. Rildo became the first adversary in GT to compel Goku to fight more seriously, with the Saiyan even likening his strength to that of Majin Buu, although the specific version of Buu remains unknown. While using his full power, Rildo proved to be somewhat evenly matched against Goku in his Super Saiyan form and even seemingly forced him to briefly transform into the stronger Super Saiyan 2. Towards the end of the battle, Rildo managed to turn Goku into metal, although this was largely a result of Goku attempting to save Pan. Ultimately, Rildo met his defeat through a combined Kamehameha from Goku and his companions. Continuing with the story, the primary antagonist of the arc emerges as the last survivor of the Tuffle race, who was reconstructed as a machine mutant, the genocidal Baby. Despite being heralded as the strongest villain ever, Baby never engages in a proper fight using his true form body, instead relying on possessing the bodies of formidable fighters. Upon possessing Vegeta's body, Baby becomes so strong that he manages to defeat a weakened Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and even his disciple, UB, after merging once more with Good Buu. Seeking another means to defeat Baby, Goku attains the new Super Saiyan 4 transformation. The battle between Goku and Baby Vegeta goes back and forth, but ultimately, Goku, after powering up once again, triumphs over and destroys Baby. Now, let's proceed with ranking the characters from this arc. Beginning with our protagonist Goku and his companions, Trunks and Pan. As previously mentioned, GT Goku, without utilizing semi-divine ki, doesn't exhibit significantly greater strength than Dragon Ball Z Goku, differing only by a few decimals. However, with the inclusion of semi-divine ki, or as we'll going refer to it from now on, the demigod forms, Goku's power is augmented significantly. In his demigod form, Goku possesses a power level of 55.5, akin to what he had during the 28th World Tournament. It's worth noting that Goku's power remains the same even after reverting to a child, except in the case of the Super Saiyan 3 form. In his demigod, Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 forms, Goku boasts power levels of 58 and 59 respectively, indicating a significant improvement in the utilization of semi-divine ki since the end of Z. Lastly, we have the Super Saiyan 3 form, which I rank at 60, only if Goku is in his adult form. However, in his child state, he cannot fully harness the power of this transformation due to his underdeveloped body. Consequently, as a child, Super Saiyan 3 Goku possesses a power level of 59.5, and the energy consumption issues are exacerbated compared to his adult form. I'll reserve the ranking for Super Saiyan 4 and its variants until after we rank Baby. Moving on to Trunks and Pan, their power levels are 27.5 in their base form, with Pan potentially surpassing Trunks due to his inconsistent training habits. In his Super Saiyan forms, GT Trunks has a power level exceeding 37. The Sigma Force members possess power levels between 27 and 29, while their commander have a level of 38. The true strength of the Sigma Force lies in their coordinated teamwork, arguably proving more effective than when they merge together. To add more depth to the Sigma Force, let's assume their power increases when fighting in synchronization. I rank each Sigma Force member at a power level of 45 when fighting as a team and their fusion at a power level of 50. Next, we have Rildo, initially an ordinary alien, later restructured into a mutant by Dr. Mu, with the intention of making him the general of the machine mutant armies. Before delving further, it's pertinent to provide a reasonable explanation for the incredibly high power of General Rildo, and Baby as well, which stems from the highly advanced technology of the Tuffle race and the immense genius of Dr. Mu. With the combination of both factors, it's conceivable that even without information about godly ki, Mu managed to develop a technology to enhance the regular life force of a living being, inadvertently generating semi-divine ki. Through these innovations, Dr. Mu succeeded in creating formidable mutant machines like Rildo. With that being said, let's proceed to rank the power of the general. In his base form, Rildo possesses a power level of 52. And upon fusing with the Sigma machines, his power increases to 56. In his final form, after assimilating all the metal on his planet, his power and range of attacks notably escalate. As Meta Rildo, he reaches a power level exceeding 57. However, this form bears the glaring weakness of relying on a planet abundant with metal, such as his world M2, leaving Rildo vulnerable to destruction, alongside the entire planet if his opponent is willing to do so. Next, we encounter the most advanced version of a neo-machine mutant, the Tuffle parasite, Baby, engineered to be genetically superior to other life forms, including the already advanced machine mutants. Baby masterminds the creation of the machines and manipulates Dr. Mu into constructing a body more potent than any mortal in the universe. Utilizing a technology akin to that used for Rildo, Baby's power can surpass that of all other mutant machines and mortals if his body fully matures, through absorbing the necessary vital energy. Though Goku halts the completion of energy harvesting, Baby still possesses enough strength to utilize his parasitic abilities and inhabit the body of a formidable warrior, such as a Saiyan, accelerating his evolution towards his perfect form. Based on this premise, let's proceed to rank Baby, starting with his larval form. While it was stated in the show that Baby was stronger than all other machine mutants, considering his larval form alone to be that formidable seems excessive. Hence, I rank this form with a power level of 47, but due to his immature body, he struggles to fully harness his raw power in battle. As Baby continues absorbing more vital energy, his body matures further, becoming more adept at combat and better at generating semi-divine ki, thereby growing stronger. At this stage, Baby begins possessing the bodies of Saiyans to increment his power growth. However, his only confrontation in his child form was against Goten, and it's likely that Baby intentionally threw that fight to facilitate his possession of Goten's body. I rank this form of Baby at 50, still weaker than demigod base Goku. Before proceeding with the ranking of Baby's forms, let's establish the power levels of the Saiyans on Earth. Goten possesses a power level similar to Trunks, while his elder brother, Gohan, surpasses him due to his more consistent training. Gohan's base form has a power level exceeding 28, and as a Super Saiyan 2, it surpasses 43. Moving on to Vegeta, who maintains consistent training, albeit not as obsessively as in Dragon Ball Z. His base and Super Saiyan power levels are on par with Goku's without the use of semi-divine ki. Notably, Vegeta elevates the power of his Super Saiyan 2 to what we may term as Super Saiyan 2 Ascended, resembling the state future Trunks showcased in Dragon Ball Super. With this form, Vegeta's power level exceeds 48, still weaker than a Super Saiyan 3, but devoid of energy consumption issues. Returning to Baby, after possessing Gohan and Goten, the Tuffle parasite identifies Vegeta as the strongest Saiyan after Goku and successfully possesses the Saiyan Prince, utilizing him as his primary body. Baby augments Vegeta's power by infusing him with his own semi-divine ki, resulting in a substantial increase in power. This situation parallels Zamasu Black's possession of Goku's body in Dragon Ball Super, albeit with semi-divine ki instead of godly ki. Continuing with the ranking, Baby Vegeta in his base form have a power level of 56, surpassing demigod base Goku. Despite only exhibiting the Super Saiyan form in the show, for our power rescaling, let's assume he fought Goku while utilizing the Super Saiyan 2 Ascended form. Thus, Baby Vegeta, while in the Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 Ascended forms, possesses power levels of 58.5 and 60, respectively. The subsequent two super strong forms of Baby Vegeta result from his absorption of even more energy from his followers, bringing him closer to the energy requirement necessary to achieve his desired godly, perfect state. The first and second strongest forms have power levels exceeding 61 and 62, respectively. Now, let's halt the ranking of Baby once more to evaluate Goku and UB powers during this arc. As Goku's disciple, UB has also learned semi-divine ki, boasting a power level of 57. However, after merging with Good Buu, most of his potential is unlocked, raising his power level to over 61, approaching complete access to fully divine ki. Meanwhile, Goku attains the Golden Ozaru form, which we'll classify into two versions. The first occurs when the Saiyan possesses a tail and can transform into a Super Saiyan. The second version, necessary for transforming into fourth level, is when the Saiyan can utilize semi-divine ki and transforms into the Golden Ozaru. Goku transforms into the latter form, possessing a power level of 62. After controlling his instincts and transforming into Super Saiyan 4, Goku's power level reaches 63. But there's more. To overpower Golden Ozaru Baby completely, Goku further increases his power by partially performing a ritual to unlock godly ki for Saiyans. In Dragon Ball Super, Goku achieves the ability to use godly ki by having 5 righteous Saiyans channel their ki into him. Similarly, during this arc in Dragon Ball GT, Goku replicates this process with only 4 righteous Saiyans channeling their energy into him. As a result, Goku's power level increases to 64 after performing the ritual, although still not possessing fully God Ki, but getting really close to it. Finally, we come to Golden Ozaru, Baby Vegeta, and Adult Form Baby. Let's adjust the story slightly, and propose that upon observing Goku's Super Saiyan 4, seemingly unlocking his latent Saiyan power, Baby Vegeta attempts to emulate this transformation. However, due to the incomplete fusion of his Tuffle presence with Vegeta's body, he fails to transform into Super Saiyan 4 at that moment. Consequently, Golden Ozaru Baby Vegeta possesses a power level of 63, while Adult Baby, on the verge of reaching divinity with his own body, boasts a power level of 60. Moving on, let's assess the Super Android 17 arc, which suffers considerably regarding power scaling, compared to the rest of Dragon Ball GT, which speaks volumes. The plot of this arc revolves around Dr. Gero and Dr. Mu forming an alliance in Hell to exact revenge against Goku. After an elaborate scheme, involving the resurrection of past villains from Hell to invade Earth, and the creation of a new, super-powered Android 17 to merge with the original, resulting in Super Android 17, but they are ultimately defeated by Goku. There are a few changes I'd like to make during this arc. Firstly, Majub doesn't get to fight Super Android 17 because he's occupied saving the Earthlings and defeating the villains that escaped from Hell on his own. In the show, Majub was done really dirty and was completely useless against the Super Android, even though he should be the one giving the best fight against the android. Given that I've assigned UB a power level of 61, he likely could have defeated Super Android 17 single-handedly, assuming the latter hadn't absorbed any energy. Regarding Vegeta, I previously mentioned that he didn't know how to utilize semi-divine ki. However, due to his prolonged possession by Baby, he has unlocked the ability to enhance his regular ki with it. It's worth noting that, during his fight against Super Android 17, Vegeta couldn't fully utilize these newfound powers as he was still adjusting to them. Additionally, in the show, Goku discovers the ability to absorb energy from Super Android 17 and recklessly attacks him with a 10 times stronger Kamehameha. To provide a slight alteration, I suggest that Goku instead uses a max power Kamehameha in hopes of overwhelming Super Android 17 with excessive energy. This desperate move serves as Goku's last chance to defeat him, especially as the Saiyan power begins to decline due to 17 absorbing his energy earlier. Furthermore, Goku's Kamehameha proves effective when Android 18 arrives to assist him, bombarding 17 with energy blasts. This barrage of attacks, plus the previously absorbed Kamehameha of Goku, leaves the Super Android stunned and unable to process the accumulated energy, allowing the Saiyan to finish him off with his Dragon Fist. Now, let's proceed to rank the relevant fighters from this arc. In his demigod base and Super Saiyan forms, Vegeta reaches power levels exceeding 55 and 58, respectively, similar to Goku's. By tapping into the Super Saiyan 2 Ascended form, boosted by semi-divine ki, Vegeta's power is 59.5. Hell Android 17 possesses the ability to utilize semi-divine ki thanks to Dr. Mu. In the show, this android demonstrates the capability to hold his own against Vegeta in his partially enhanced base form. Considering this, Hell Android 17 boasts a power level of 51. The GT version of Android 17 experiences a substantial power boost due to being controlled and resonating with his Hell counterpart, meaning he has the same level. Finally, Super Android 17, in his base state without absorbing energy, possesses a power level exceeding 58. By absorbing energy, he can escalate to 63. However, beyond this threshold, his body becomes unable to handle the energy, rendering him highly vulnerable to attacks. Finally, we arrive at the last arc of Dragon Ball GT, the Shadow Dragon Saga. To begin, it's essential to understand that the formidable strength of the Shadow Dragons stems from their creation by the negative energies unleashed each time a wish was made with the Dragon Balls. These energies, generated by Shenron, an entity with divine origins as it was created by Kami-sama, imbue most of the Shadow Dragons with semi-divine ki. With this context in mind, let's promptly proceed to rank the Shadow Dragons. The second weakest Shenron in terms of raw power is the second star dragon, Hei's Shenron. Easily dominated by Pan, he possesses a power level of approximately 24. However, Hei's Shenron compensates for his lack of raw strength with specialized endurance, enabling him to withstand attacks from significantly stronger opponents. Moreover, he harnesses semi-divine ki like his fellow shadow dragons, channeling it entirely into his elemental ability to pollute the environment and weaken any living creature, including those infused with semi-divine ki like Goku. Given that his pollution ability is Hei's Shenron's true strength, I rank him at a power level of 56 if we only consider that aspect of his strength. Beyond this power threshold, his weakening pollution ability becomes much less effective. Technically, the weakest shadow dragon is Naturon Shenron, who relies on absorbing other living creatures to augment his power significantly, enhancing their life force with semi-divine ki. Essentially, Naturon Shenron sacrifices his personal raw power for the ability to escalate his strength to extraordinary levels after absorbing a single entity, granting him remarkable flexibility in terms of potential abilities, depending on what he absorbs. Additionally, the 7-star dragon can effortlessly burrow underground. Naturon Shenron's maximum power can vary depending on whom he absorbs, but the peak amount of power he can attain after absorption reaches up to 60. Moving on to Oceanus Shenron, I must admit to a slight bias toward this dragon, because the element of air is my favorite. However, despite showing really cool-looking abilities, Oceanus Shenron's underwhelming strength disappoints me greatly. Therefore, I propose a minor alteration, which is, her Princess Odo form is actually weaker than her true dragon form. However, due to her insecurities, she refrains from utilizing her true form under any circumstances. In her princess form, Oceanus Shenron boasts a power level of 57, while in her true form, she reaches a level of 61. It's worth noting that while using her abilities, Oceanus Shinran becomes vulnerable to external attacks. Next is Rage Shinran, the 5-star dragon, whose power heavily relies on absorbing electricity to augment his semi-divine energy. Without absorbing electricity, his power level stands at 28. However, when he absorbs electricity to the maximum extent, his level reaches 62, albeit with a significant weakness to water. Moving forward, we encounter Ice Shinran, the 3rd strongest shadow dragon. In his base shell form, I rank his power level to be around 56, and in his true form, it rises to 63. His counterpart, Nova Shinran, surpasses him in strength. With his base shell form, boasting a power level of 57, and his true form, reaching a level of 64, the 4-star Shinran comes closest to possessing true godly ki. Also, he is specialized in combat speed. The 1st-star shadow dragon, Sin Shinran, stands as the strongest among them, with a power level of 65. And as a slight change to the story, I want to establish that Sin Shinran is the only antagonist in Dragon Ball GT to wield God Ki, a significant factor contributing to his superiority. Furthermore, Goku's inability to sense his ki while being unable to see made fighting him even more challenging. After being overwhelmed by a powered-up Goku, Sin Shinran absorbs the remaining Dragon Balls, transforming into Omega Shinran. Although officially, his power increases tenfold in the show, as I said in previous videos, I won't delve into multipliers extensively. Omega Shinran not only enhances his powers, but also inherits all the abilities from the other shadow dragons. I rank this form with a power level of at least 70, although I will have a specific number after I finish the Dragon Ball Super ranking. During their battle against the dragon, Goku and Vegeta experience a significant power-up. Goku, in his attempt to overcome the formidable 1st-star dragon, replicates the ritual he previously performed against Baby. Utilizing other 4 Saiyans to channel their power to him once again, resulting in Goku achieving true godly ki by using the full power Super Saiyan 4 transformation. Due to the Super Saiyan 4 being able to handle godly ki, it signifies the biologic purpose of this transformation, which is to elevate the Super Saiyan to godhood. In this state, Goku's power level reaches 66, also allowing him to sense Sin Shenron's energy and other gods. As for Vegeta, he attains Super Saiyan 4 after utilizing the same machine that Baby used to transform into an Ozaru. Naturally, Vegeta is inferior to Goku since he hasn't undergone the ritual. However, let's alter the story slightly and say that, during the fight against Omega Shinran, Goku and the other Saiyans channel a portion of their energy to Vegeta while using Super Saiyan 4, facilitating his ascension to godhood in a single ritual. With 5 Saiyans channeling energy simultaneously, akin to the ritual Goku employed in Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta achieves the ability to use godly ki while transformed. During Vegeta's ritual, the disciple of Goku, assumes the responsibility of holding off Omega Shinran. This time, having honed his Majin Buu powers further through training, Majub gains new abilities such as body manipulation and regeneration, akin to the original Buu. While still not a true match for Omega Shinran, Majub's strength is sufficient to buy time. I rank the newly empowered reincarnation of Buu at a level of 65. Failing to defeat Omega Shinran individually, Goku and Vegeta opt to use the fusion, forming the ultimate warrior, Gogeta. Given that both Goku and Vegeta wielded godly ki in their Super Saiyan 4 forms, the fusion amplifies their power to an unprecedented level. Although I'm not sure of the exact number yet, I rank Gogeta's power level at over 80. Following the triumph over the Shadow Dragons, Goku embarks on a journey with the original Shinran for over a century, likely culminating in his attainment of true divinity. The narrative leaves GT Goku's power and status after leaving with Shinran for a century open to interpretation, so in the same way, I leave it up to you to rank the power level of our beloved Goku. There are also the descendants Goku and Vegeta Jr., which they lack definitive statements or feats regarding their power. So personally, I give them a power level of 27 and 30 to their base and Super Saiyan forms, respectively. Before finishing, I'll name the tier 60 as minor deity. We will get to tiers 70 and 80 in next videos. With that, we are done with Dragon Ball GT power levels. Originally, I thought I would have to nerf GT Goku quite a lot, but with the semi-divine key concept, it really helped to keep everything nearly the same, with just a few changes in the story. It also helped to make both GT and Super feel a lot more connected story-wise, so I am pretty happy with the results. There are still more things to discuss about Dragon Ball GT story and transformations, but we will get there in the future, most likely for Dragon Ball Heroes. Alright, that should be for the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel, and if you prefer not to, I still appreciate immensely that you watched the video. With that being said, I hope you have great days to come and see you again soon. Smiley face.